and replies, "Okay, Ne-san. But make it quick, I won't be able to hold him for long," as he rushes after the beast. In the meantime, the demonic woman channels her magical power into the space between her hands, forming a dark spherical vortex that begins to absorb all the energy in the surrounding area. As Elfman fights with the beast, taking quite a few licks, but focusing his strikes on its open wounds from his sister's attacks. After about 2 minuets, he begins to get overpowered again and screams, "Mira, I can't hold it back any longer. Whatever you're gonna do, do it now." Mira finishes charging her attack, which is now a large black globe between her hands, and yells out, "Elfman, get clear. This next one is going to be deadly." The man complies and quickly makes his way to the area behind his sister. The woman smiles devilishly at the beast and taunts, "On this, you monster," before calling out, "Soul extinction. Soru Zetsumetsu." The globe then fires a large black-purple beam that generates a devastating explosion. When the smoke from the explosion clears, it shows the beast down and out, still smoking and wafting dark energy. Mira Jane breaths heavily, as that last attack took a lot out of her. She lands on the ground and reverts to her regular form. Elfman in the meanwhile walks over to the creature to make sure it's done for, and when he touches it, the beast doesn't even twitch. Mira, seeing this, wipes her brow and turns towards the village and says, "Come on Elfman Ododo, let's head back and let the village, and let Lisana know that our job is done here," as she begins to walk off. However, Elfman remains where he is, and thinks to himself, "This thing was strong enough to give Mira a hard time. Its power may come in handy for the guild down the road, so I should take it over and add it to my beasts. I know that in the past I haven't been able to do full body takeover, but I'm sure I can. I'm the man of the family and I can't continue to be weaker than my sisters." So with his mind made up, he summons his magical power and begins a takeover of the beast. Mira, feeling her brother's magical power, turns around and sees what he's doing. Seeing the seal under him and the beast, she knows what he's attempting and screams, "No Elfman, don't." However, it's too late. The beast's body fades away. Elfman's entire form is covered in yellow light, and a moment later, standing where the man stood is now the form of the beast. Mira takes a step back, before swallowing some spit and asking, "Elfman Ototo? Is it you? Are you in control?" Beast Elfman's eyes glow red for a moment before turning into the man's blue, as he takes a look at himself and becomes excited. "I did it, Mira. I finally managed a full body takeover." The S-class mage sighs in relief before shaking her head and replying, "You idiot. You scared me half to death. Now go back to normal and let's get out of here." With that, she turns around to start walking again. When she hears her brother grunt in effort, she turns back around to see him gripping his head, and his eyes changing between red and blue, and realizes that the beast must not be completely suppressed, and is now fighting for control. Eventually the monster wins out, and with a new body and new magical power lets out a large R-O-A-R-R-R-R-R-R. And immediately it attacks Mira Jane. She manages to transform her arms into Satan soul form to block, but is still sent flying far away, and her left arm gets cracked in the process. Beast Elfman goes after the white-haired mage, seeing her as the biggest threat to its existence. When it reaches her, she's transformed fully back into Satan's soul. However, rather than actually fight with the beast, she tries to reach her brother inside and convince him to fight it, and ends up receiving multiple injuries due to that. Eventually Mira is sitting on the ground, back to normal as her magical power ran out, her left arm broken, scrapped up and bruised, and staring at the beast lumbering toward her. Then things go from bad to worse as she hears, "Mira," and looks up to find her younger sister flying right towards her. When the girl lands, she looks over her sister and asks, "What happened, Mira? Why are you so injured? Where is Elfni?" Mira begins to panic, and answers back, "Lisana, you have to get out of here right now. Elfman, he tried a full-body takeover on the beast, and it failed. That monster is Elfman. Please, Lisana, you have to go before he kills you." The younger white-haired girl is shocked by this, before standing up and saying, "Nonsense, Mira. Elfni-chan is still in there, and I know that if we just remind him who we are, then he'll snap out of it." She then turns and walks towards Beast Elfman, holding her arms out. As she and the beast draw closer to each other, the skies begin to darken, and lightning begins to flash, but what no one notices is that it's blackish yellow in color. She begins to speak, "Elfni, it's me, Lisana, your Imoto. Elfni, I know you're in there and I know you can beat the monster. So come on Elf Knee. Stop messing around, and we can go home together, you, me, and Mirane, just like always. She smiles at Beast Elfman, who raises his right arm up, and then swings it down, intent on slapping the girl away. However, before his hand can meet her body, there's a flash of blackish yellow lightning and the girl vanishes, which causes him to hit air. Mira begins to search for her sister until she hears a deep baritone voice she knows so well from behind her say, "Looks like I made it just in time. You're lucky San called me Lisana. Otherwise you could have been killed just now." Mira looks behind herself, which Lisana looks up from the arms holding her, and they both see the whiskered face of Naruto Udrayar. Mira is overjoyed that her sister is alright, and even more so that Naruto saved her life. Lisana on the other hand is relieved and a little sad and says, "Naruto Nisan. Thank you for saving me. But Elf Nisan, he was really about to hurt me." The blonde sets her down, grips her chin lightly and raises her head to look at him, before replying, "Don't be so sad Lisana-chan. You have to understand your brother is not himself right now. If he were, we both know he would never hurt you. So buck up, you're welcome." The 15-year-old smiles at him in thanks, before he walks past Mira and toward Beast Elfman. As he passes the other S-class mage he comments, "Mira-chan, I'll handle things from here." Elfman has been naughty, losing control to the beast and allowing it to use his body to harm his beautiful sisters. Some punishment is in order, I think, but don't worry, I won't hurt him too bad. After all, he's my comrade. As he turns to give her a confident and warm smile, which causes her to blush and feel safe. The blonde god slayer quickly rushes the monstrous Elfman, and using nothing but pure speed closes the distance between them in seconds. The beast meanwhile raises its fist and as soon as the blonde is in range brings it down upon him to crush him. However, it's surprised when the man simply catches the fist bare-handed with one hand and doesn't even move a muscle. Naruto however scoffs at this. "Is that the best you got? I know you can hear me in there, Elfman. If you allowed yourself to lose control to a monster this weak, then you can call yourself a man." The S-class mage throws the arm back, gets in his guard and lands a blow to his stomach that caves it in around his fist, bringing Beast Elfman to his knees. He removes his hand from Beast Elfman's stomach, and proceeds to grab its horns, and with a bit of effort and a large grunt lifts him off the ground and slams him back first into the earth, cratering it. Beast Elfman groans at the pain but is still ready to fight. However, the blonde god slayer grabs a nerve cluster in his neck and begins to spark with yellow lightning, before sending it into the nerves, electrocuting the beast, causing it to roar in pain, before blacking out. Naruto cuts the current, and as soon as the beast is out, it reverts back to Elfman, showing the man busted up pretty good, but nothing that won't heal, and unconscious. The blonde bends down and slings the larger teen over his shoulder, huffing, "Damn Elfman. What have you been eating, man? Whatever it is you need to cut back, you're getting heavy." He then proceeds to walk back over to the Strauss sisters, giving them both a smile. He extends his hand to Mira and helps her stand up, before addressing both girls, "All right ladies, let's head down to the village. Mira-chan, you and Elfman can get patched up by the village doctor, and when this big oaf wakes up we'll head back to the guild and let San know what happened." The two white-haired girls nod their heads at him, and the group begins to trek back to the village. The entire way there, Lisana and Naruto converse, with the blonde telling the youngest Strauss all about his last S-class job. However, Mira is silent, as she thinks over how things went to hell, how her brother nearly lost his soul to a monster because she didn't realize how bothered he was by not being able to do a full-body takeover. She thinks how her sister was nearly killed by their possessed brother, and she couldn't do anything to stop it because of how weak she was, and begins to question how she ever made S-class. They get to the village, where Mira and Elfman are given into the care of the local doctor, who verifies that the woman's arm is broken and puts it in a cast, and wraps up the rest of the two's injuries, including Elfman's right eye, which will have a scar across it. Naruto lets the mayor know that the beast is dead, getting the payment for the mission, and 2 rooms at the inn for the night, sharing a room with the male Strauss, while the 2 girls share the other. Later that night finds Mira sitting on the roof of the inn, looking up at the moon in sadness, Lisana in their room sleeping peacefully. She is so lost in thought that she doesn't even notice her favorite blonde sit next to her, wearing nothing but black pajama bottoms with lightning bolts on them. It's not until he speaks that she realizes he's there. "You know, that look doesn't really suit you, Mira-chan. I like the confident, no-nonsense, self-proclaimed strongest woman in fairy tale Mira-Jane better. You want to tell me what's wrong and why that sad look is on that gorgeous face of yours?" The white-haired woman sighs sadly, not even reacting to his comment about her looks like she normally would. Instead, she turns her head to him slightly, and responds, "It's all my fault, Naruto. I was so arrogant, I thought that we'd go in, I'd kill the beast with ease, and that would be the end of it. I never thought anything could go wrong. Never imagined my little brother trying to take over the monster because of his drive to prove he's as strong as Lisana and I. I should have stopped him, but instead I stood there like an idiot and let him do a full-body takeover, and paid for it. I couldn't hurt the beast for fear of hurting my little brother and ended up injured, and then to make matters worse I nearly lost my baby sister at the hands of said brother. What the hell was I thinking? I don't deserve to be S-class when I can't even protect myself, let alone my siblings." At the end she begins to cry. Her crying stops momentarily, however, due to surprise, as the blonde wraps her in a hug and begins to pat her head. The blonde proceeds to say, "It's okay, Mira-chan. We all make mistakes, it's what makes us human. So you were a bit arrogant, so what? Every S-class mage has a bit of arrogance, including me. But none of what happened was your fault. Elfman trying to take over the beat and failing and then almost killing Lisana. Well, that's his fault and his alone, and I'll be having a talk with him about it later, man to man. Don't ever blame yourself for forces outside your control, Mira-chan, because no one can control those, not even the gods. If you're upset about how you handled things, then change, become a better sister, and a greater mage. Learn from your mistakes, that's all you can do as a person." His words hit the girl right in her heart, and instead of responding back, she buries her head in his bare chest and begins to cry even harder. Eventually Mira-jane cries herself to sleep in the blonde's embrace, and when he looks down he sees a tiny smile on her sleeping face and smiles himself. The blonde places the young woman in her bed in her hotel room, then returns to his own and lays down to sleep himself. The next morning he awakes early, showers, and gets dressed, and when he comes out of the bathroom he finds Elfman awake and sitting up in his bed, as the white-haired teen looks at him in shock and shame. The blonde grabs a chair and sets it next to the bed, before taking a seat and crossing his arms and addressing the younger mage. "We need to have a serious discussion, Elfman. What you did last night was stupid, egotistical, and dangerous. You could have killed your sisters." The younger teen looks down in shame and anger, clenching the sheets in his hands before responding, "I know. But you don't understand, Naruto Aniki. You can't possibly know how it feels to watch as your sisters can do full-body takeovers from the very beginning, and yet can't even after training to for years. You have no idea how that makes you feel as a man, to feel so weak." Crack. Suddenly he feels a fist implant itself in his cheek, turning his head and causing him to slide to the left a little bit on his bed. Standing over him with a look of anger and his fist extended is Naruto. He looks down at Elfman before laying into him. "You moron, listen to yourself. Whining like a child just because you can't do a full-body takeover like your sisters. So what? You let your pride blind you to what is really important, family. Because of that pride your sisters nearly died by your hands. That's not the way a man acts, it's the way a child acts. You aren't a man." The larger teen begins to cry from the one eye that isn't bandaged, as he keeps his head bowed. Naruto sighs, "But you have the chance to make amends, Elfman. All you have to do is beg your sisters for their forgiveness and I'm sure they'll give it because they both love you. Also, if it's that important to you to be able to do a full-body takeover, then I'll train with you, and help you accomplish that goal, because after all, that's what comrades are for." Just then there is a knock on the door and Naruto answers it, and standing there are Strauss girls. He motions for them to come inside, and decides to leave and give the family some privacy. After much talking, apologizing, and crying, the three siblings exit the room, ready to head back to the guild, and they find Naruto leaning against the wall next to the door waiting, as the 4 fairy tale mages take their leave. Magnolia Town Fairy Tale Guild, March 16, X 782. The 4 fairy tale mages return to the guild that afternoon, reporting to Minato what happened, and the blonde man is disappointed in Elfman for his foolish decision. However, before he can reprimand the 16-year-old, Naruto tells him that he already covered it, so he leaves it be and expresses his happiness that they all returned alive and banged up rather than dead. He commends his son on handling the situation spectacularly, and tells him that if he keeps it up he may just become 5th master of the guild when he decides to retire himself. The younger blonde Jund tells him that day is a long way off considering Minato is only 43 years old, still relatively young. The fourth master gives all 4 mages the next 3 weeks off. Naruto decides to head to his favorite restaurant, however before he does, Mira pulls him off to the side to speak to him. He looks at his fellow S-class mage and sees something on her face he's never seen, nervousness, so he decides to see what's up, and asks her. "What's wrong, Mira-chan? You're shaking like a leaf with nervousness, so what's up? Is something wrong?" The 17-year-old girl takes a deep breath before doing something completely unexpected. She smashes her lips to his and begins to kiss him passionately. For a few seconds he's stunned by this, however he quickly gets over it, and begins to kiss her back, wrapping his arms around her waist, as she wraps her good arm around his neck. After kissing for a full 3 minuets, they separate to get their breath back. Naruto, after regaining his breath, looks down at the woman in his arms and asks, "What was that for?" "Not that I didn't enjoy it, but it was so unexpected, in a good way, but..." Mira places her finger to his lips to shut him up before responding, "Shut up, Naruto-kun, and listen. Everything that happened yesterday, with Elfman trying to take over the beast, and almost losing Lisanna, made me realize that life is way too short to waste. So I wanted to let you know how I feel about you, how I've felt about you for 2 years now. I love you, Naruto-kun." The blonde is shocked by these words, as he tries to process what the white-haired woman just said. He's known for a year now that he himself has fallen for the takeover mage, but wasn't sure till just now that she felt the same for him, and so he decides to voice his thoughts. "You love me, Mira-chan? If you've loved me for so long, why wait until now to tell me? Why not let me know 2 years ago when you developed these feelings for me?" Mira steps away from him for a moment and tilts her head back to look up in his eyes as he stands a full foot taller than her, as she responds, "Yes, I love you, Naruto-kun. The reason I didn't say anything until now is that I didn't know if you would return my feelings, and the thought that you might reject me scared me to death. But now, I don't care if you reject me, I'll hurt for a while, but it's better to put myself out there and be rejected than to hold it inside and never know. I just wanted you to know how I felt before it was too late, so what do you have to say, Naruto-kun?" Naruto looks deep into her eyes, seeing truth, love, fear, and hope. Instead of responding with words to her question, he decides actions speak louder than words, as he grabs her around the waist again and draws her back in, earning a squeak of surprise from her, before he silences it by starting a second passionate kiss between them. Mira is surprised for only a second, before she responds to him and begins to kiss back, leading them to make out for another 3 minuets straight. When they separate again, Naruto smiles down at her, and chuckles at the look of bliss on her face, before stopping and saying, "I love you to Mira-chan. I've loved you for the last year, but kept it in because I wasn't sure you felt the same. Now that I do, I only have one thing I want to ask you." The white-haired woman is blown away at the revelation that her longtime crush and secret love feels the same way about her, but she asks, "What's the, Naruto-kun?" The blonde grabs her hands and takes a deep breath before responding with a question of his own. "Mira-Jane Strauss, would you do me the honor of being my girlfriend?" The white-haired mage actually squeals at this question, before jumping into the blonde man's arms and responding, "Yes. Yes, I'll be your girlfriend, Naru-kun," as she kisses him all over his face while saying this. He chuckles at this and kisses her on the lips again real quick, before setting her on her feet but still holding on to her and saying, "Awesome. Well then, how about we go and get something to eat? I'm paying." Mira nods at this as she takes his arm with her good one and the two walk out of the guild heading for one of the restaurants in town. Not even paying attention to all the rest of the guild smiling and clapping at them finally getting together. That day brought about a lot of changes. First and foremost, Mira changed quite a bit in her personality, becoming kinder and more loving, especially to her siblings and Naruto. She also made amends with Urza and the two became great friends. Her look also changed. She started to wear dresses, and keep her hair down in the back, but tying her bangs up in a little front ponytail. Lisanna, after nearly being killed by her brother, chose to stop taking jobs, and became the guild's head waitress, barmaid, and started playing a motherly role within the guild. She also began to date Natsu, something which didn't go over well with Elfman at first, but after a chat with his elder sister's boyfriend, let it go. Elfman himself changed a bit, taking all of Naruto's words to heart, and begging to end all of his sentences with the word man. Even going as far as to tell girls they aren't being very manly, annoying them greatly. Also he decided to take Naruto up on that offer to train, and in the years to come would grow much stronger because of it, yet still never being able to do a full body takeover. Everything in the guild would continue as normal for the next 2 years. It wouldn't be until July of X784 that things in the guild would really get shaken up, and it would all start with a new member joining. It's now been a little over 2 years since the job to take on the beast, 2 years since Naruto saved the life of Lysana Strauss, knocked Elfman Strauss back to sense, and began dating Mira Jane Strauss. In those 2 years Naruto and Mira have grown ever closer, moving in together last year, after he moved out of the dorms and bought a house within town, and then most recently getting engaged 2 months ago. Since the incident, Mira Jane has semi-retired from active duty, only doing S-class jobs every so often, and only with Naruto or her best friend Urza. Much has changed in the last 2 years, including the guild adding one more S-class mage to their ranks in the form of the mysterious Mistogen in December of X782. Mistogen is a mystery because he always keeps his face covered. A hat covers the top half of face eyes, while the bottom half is covered by a scarf-like mask. Also, every time he comes into the guild to get a job, he always puts everyone to sleep. To this day, the only ones to have actually seen his face are Makarov, Minato, Kushina, Laxus, and Naruto. The most serious change has happened in the last month. At the beginning of the month, the guild gained a new member, a buxom 17-year-old blonde celestial spirit, Seirei, mage named Lucy. Lucy joined the guild after meeting Natsu and Happy in Harjin Town, and she and the pink-haired dragon slayer destroyed the port, with the boy also destroying a big part of the town as well. Her first day there she met many of the younger mages, who were all involved in a big brawl at the time. Included in that list were Kana, Gray, Elfman, Loke, Lysana, and Mira. After meeting all of them, and having Minato break up the fighting, she met the 4th master of Fairy Tail and received her Fairy Tail stamp on the back of her right hand in pink. On her second day she went with Natsu on a non-sanctioned job to find another of their guildmates, Macau. They found him after knocking out a mountain Vulcan which had used takeover on him after he let his guard down after beating 19 of its fellows. They returned Macau back to Magnolia Town and to his 6-year-old son Romeo. The day after that she finally met Naruto for the first time, and her first impression of the blonde god slayer was that he was hunky, but obviously off limits if Mira sitting in his lap at the time was any indication. After meeting Naruto and being told to call him Big Brother like all the other younger mages, she proceeded to have many great adventures, forming a team with Natsu and Happy and earning a new Golden Gate K. From that mission they found that Naruto was gone again, this time with Mirajane, finding they'd gone out to do one of their joint S-class jobs. However, they didn't have much time to ponder it, as that same day Urza Scarlet Drayar, Urza had been officially adopted into the family when she attained S-class, returned to the guild. She brought with her news about a plot being set up by a dark guild called Eisenwald, Eisenvaruto, which involved the darkest of magics. When she found out that neither her father, Master, or her Oni-sama were present, she decided to form a team with Natsu, Gray, and Lucy, which Lysana jokingly called Fairy Tail's strongest team, and with the permission of Makarov, who was in charge for the time since Minato and Kushina were at the annual Guildmasters meeting, Urza and the others headed towards Onabus town to try and stop Eisenwald's plot. Urza informed them all about the details, with the exception of Natsu, who she knocked out and set his head in her lap after he got his usual motion sickness from transportation. When they reached their destination they accidentally left Natsu on the train, with Urza blaming herself and saying that her Oni-sama was always telling her to never forget a comrade. What followed was a chase of the train to get Natsu back, finding the boy in a destroyed rail car and being told that Eisenwald was on their way to Oshibana town to play some flute called Lullaby. Lucy was the one who told them what Lullaby really was, a demon from the Book of Zareth, the ultimate death magic. Shi no Maho. They quickly hightailed it to Oshibana station, where they met Eisenwald, including its ace Aragorn, the Shinigami, a wind mage. Aragorn proceeded to tell his men to hold off the Fairy Tail mages while he took off to set up the station's PA system to broadcast Lullaby's song. Natsu and Gray went after the wind mage, while Urza and Lucy took on the remainder of Eisenwald, quickly defeating them, seeing as Urza is S-class, though she'd used up a lot of magic power on the magical car they used to get there and had to rest afterwards. Natsu and Gray each fought another member of Eisenwald. Natsu faced the shadow mage Kageyama, while Gray faced Raoul, a black thread mage, each one winning their respective fight. After that they learned that Aragorn's true target was the annual Guild Masters meeting in Clover, However, they had yet another obstacle when Aragorn covered the station in a wind barrier trapping them. However, Lucy provided the solution with her newest spirit, Virgo, who dug a tunnel under the station for them to escape. After that, Natsu defeated Aragorn before he could get to Clover. However, Kageyama, who they brought along, grabbed the flute and went ahead to Clover Town. What happened next was Kageyama being unable to play the flute after speaking with Minato, and then Lullaby getting angry about no one playing it and turning into a 200-foot-tall demon. Urza and the others then fought with it, filling it with holes so that when it went to use its death magic it couldn't. They unleashed their strongest attacks at it after that, destroying the demonic flute, as well as a large portion of Clover Town. When they returned to the guild after this, they found Naruto and Mira had returned, and Urza greeted her older brother with a large hug. When the God Slayer heard the details of the mission and the destruction wrought, he frowned and reprimanded them all, especially his little sister, telling them they should have pushed it out of Clover before destroying it. His reaction was unexpected but understood, as Clover Town was pretty much his hometown. After that they had other adventures, biggest of which was them stealing an S-class job while Urza and Naruto both were gone. The job was on an island of demons called Galuna Island, and at first it was just Lucy, Natsu, and Happy, but Minato sent Gray after them to bring them back for punishment, and they ended up bringing him along for the job. During the job they found out more about Gray's past, meeting his former fellow student of Leon Vastia, and his group. They fought Lion's team, which consisted of the dog-like poison mage Toby, the overly obsessed with Leon, doll mage Sherry Blendy, and the wave mage Yuka Suzuki. They beat each member one by one, and during the job, Urza showed up, intent on dragging them back to the guild for punishment, but allowed them to stay to finish the job. Gray learned that Leon was trying to revive another demon from the Book of Zareth, Deliora, the very demon who made Gray an orphan and lead him to learning from in the first place. The same demon that sacrificed her life to seal away using a spell called Iced Shell, Isudo Shiru, which is an ice spell which uses the caster's spirit and physical body to freeze someone or something. In essence, the user becomes the ice. Gray tried to stop Leon, fighting him in a battle of ice make and actually winning. However, not long after, the ice around the demon melted and it revived, but one punch from Natsu caused it to crumble to dust, proving that ice had drained it of all its power. After this they destroyed the magic lens over the island that was making the moon look purple, got Lucy another Golden Gate key, and left. Their punishment upon returning was severe, and they learned their lessons. Today we find Fairy Tail's strongest team, returning from another job, this one a little one worth only 7,000 jewels, which Lucy took intent on doing it solo, but the rest joined her. As they walk down the main street of Magnolia, they can hear all the people whispering about them being fairy tale mages and how they feel sorry for them, until Urza notices the guild in the distance and her eyes widen as she says, "What happened to our guild?" The others look in the same direction and are all shocked, as sticking out of the guild from various places are large metal poles. When they get in front of the guild they can see exactly how bad the damage is, as Lucy asks, who would do something like this to the guild? That's when they hear a soft voice respond, "It was Phantom. Phantom attacked our guild." They turn to find Lisana. Natsu becomes angry at this and asks, "Phantom did this?" His girlfriend nods before leading them around the side of the guild and down into the basement, where everyone is sitting around drinking, and Minato is seated on a crate with Kushina to his left, and his son and Mira to his right side. The blonde master smiles at his mages. "Hello. I take it the mission went well?" Lucy nods and responds, "Yes, master. But..." Natsu steps in front of the wizard saint and speaks, "Pops, what are you doing just sitting around? Phantom attacked our guild. We have to retaliate?" Minato shakes his head at this before responding, "We will do no such thing, Natsu-kun. It's against the law to start a guild war and would result in major repercussions. Besides, it's not worth it. No one was harmed. They attacked when the guild was empty." This surprises all of them, but Urza breathes a sigh of relief, as Mira says, "They attacked after everyone had gone home for the night, so there were no injuries." As Minato nods his head and speaks again, "We will repair the damage, but in the meantime all jobs will be taken from down here." However, Natsu isn't happy about this and breaks something saying, "Not gonna happen, Pops. They aren't getting away with attacking our guild." But he is quickly shut up by a punch to the head by Naruto, which plants his face firmly into the ground. The younger blonde man sighs before addressing the pink-haired dragon slayer, "Enough, Natsu. You think Tu-san isn't mad about Phantom's cowardly attack? He's the maddest one out of all of us, but he's right. Fighting them over the defacement of an empty guild hall would be pointless and stupid. So do everyone a favor and cool your head before you end up getting us all in trouble, or else I'll have to really kick your ass. The blonde decides to explain the situation to Lucy, who looks confused. Phantom Lord is nearly as strong as we are. Their master Jose Porla is one of the 10 wizard saints. Just like TLSO, they have a group of S-class mages called the Element 4, and on top of that is a man known as Black Steel, Gajeel Red Fox, the Iron Dragon Slayer, Tetsu Doragon Shiraya. This shocks Lucy, who asks, "There's another Dragon Slayer? But I thought that Natsu was the only one." Naruto shakes his head at that and responds, "No, Natsu isn't the only Dragon Slayer in the world, just as I'm not the only God Slayer in the world. I don't know how many God Slayers or Dragon Slayers there are, but there could be nearly as many as there are dragons and gods." Natsu stands up, rubbing his face, and nods his head to his elder brother figure before going over to Lisana and having her tend to his injured face. Later that night, everyone decides to stick to groups just in case, with Urza, Gray, Happy, Natsu, and Lisana staying with Lucy in her little apartment for the night and most going through her things except the white-haired girl. Also that night Levi is traveling down the streets with her 2 teammates, Droy, who uses the holder-type plant magic, Peranto Magiku, which involves the use of seeds, and Jet, who uses high-speed, High Supido, a caster-type magic which allows one to move at extremely high speeds. Together the 3 are known as Team Shadow Gear, but that night they're ambushed and not found till the next morning. Magnolia South Gate Park, August 15th, X784. The people of Magnolia Town are gathered in the park, around one of the large trees. What they are staring at are the beaten-up forms of Team Shadow Gear, who are stuck to the trunk by large pieces of black metal, and painted upon the stomach of Levi is the symbol of Phantom Lord. The people begin to whisper as Urza, Natsu, Lucy, Lisana, and Gray make their way through the crowd with the redhead saying, "Make room, we're from their guild." When they see the state their friends are in, they have different reactions. Urza, Gray, and especially Natsu are angry, while Lucy and Lisana are horrified, as the pink-haired teen clenches his fist and his face takes on a look of pure rage as he sees Phantom. The whispers of the people begin to increase as Minato and Naruto make their way up to the tree, both wearing their furred coats, the master wearing his wizard saint medallion, and magic rolling off of them in waves. The 4th master of Fairy Tail looks upon his injured members before saying, "I can tolerate the destruction of my guild hall. I can tolerate attacks on myself. But what I cannot tolerate is my kids being harmed." As the ground around him explodes from his magical power, as he continues speaking, "If Phantom wants a war, then that is what they will get." Naruto proceeds to walk up to the tree and quickly rip the metal restraints off of the 3 mages, before handing Jet and Droid to Natsu and Gray respectively, and taking Levi in his arms bridal style. He looks down at one of the girls he sees as a younger sister, and his eyes harden in anger before he speaks to the unconscious girl. "I promise you, Levi, I will make Gajeel pay for what he's done to you. I won't stop until he is nothing but melted slag." They take the 3 to Magnolia Hospital, where their wounds are treated by Rin and Sakura. Lucy stays at the hospital while the rest of the guild heads to Oaktown, where Phantom Lord has a guild hall. The blonde girl looks at the 3 in sadness, especially Levi, remembering how they became friends, and how she promised the blue-haired girl that she could be the first to read the novel she, Lucy, is writing, when it's finished. Oaktown. In Oaktown, at the Phantom Lord Guildhall, the mages of Phantom are drinking and celebrating the successful attack on Fairy Tail, and as 3 of them head to door intent on going out and attacking some members of Fairy Tail, the door explodes. When the smoke clears, it's to show nearly the entirety of Fairy Tail, with the exceptions of the injured 3, Lucy, Makarov, Lisana, and Kushina. They are led by Minato and Naruto. The 4th master of Fairy Tail yells out, "Fairy Tail is here. Attack!" As the Fairy Tail mages begin to attack the Phantom mages, Gajeel watches from a beam high in the air. Urza re-equips to her Flame Empress armor and takes out a bunch of Phantom mages with a swipe of a flaming sword. Gray intones, "Ice Make. Lance. Isu Maiku. Ransu," as he makes multiple lances of ice that takes out quite a few Phantom mages. Natsu takes a breath and calls out, "Fire Dragon's Roar. Karyu no Hoko." as he releases a concentrated stream of fire from his mouth, burning many phantom mages and taking them out of the fight. Elfman turns his arm into a reptile's and proceeds to physically dominate a large group of mages. Kana uses her card magic to create a net of lightning to fry 10 mages. Obito uses his Sharingan to place mages into illusions. Kakashi uses his lightning magic to paralyze a large group of phantom mages, while Naruto and Minato use seal and wind magics to subdue and knock out various mages. One of the phantom mages turns to one of his fellows and says, "Those two blondes are monsters." Minato uses a lightning blast on that mage and his group while saying, "You harmed this monster's kids. You should have expected repercussions." As he makes his way upstairs to the second floor, to confront Jose, he yells to his son, "Naruto, I leave things down here to you." The younger blonde nods, before answering back, "You got it too, San. Go kick Jose's ass." As the fairy tale mages continue to fight the phantom mages. Magnolia Town. Just before attack on Phantom, Lucy is walking down the street towards her apartment, holding groceries in her left arm. As she walks down the path from the store, it begins to rain even though the sun is still shining, confusing her. However, she notices a woman approaching her. The woman has long blue hair which is tightly curled at the base, she has dark blue eyes, she wears a navy blue coat, a fur shawl with a turu bozu attached to it, as well as a Russian Cossack hat, and is very curvaceous. As the woman is walking towards her, Lucy asks, "Who are you?" The other woman responds, "Drip drip drop. Juvia is a rain woman. The rain is always with me. Drip drip drop." The blonde shakes her head and says, "Okay. Well, that's freaky." The blue-haired woman walks right by her saying, "Have a nice day. Drip drip drop." However, as she goes to walk away, another more male voice says, "Non non non. Miss Juvia should not shirk her mission." As a man wearing a brown suit, a monocle, and weird-looking hair, comes out of the ground, and continues saying, "You know that this young woman is our Cybele." Lucy is freaked out by this, before she recalls what Cybele means and takes a defensive stance. Cybele means target. "Who are you people?" The weird man smiles oddly and responds, "I am Saul of Earth, but you can call me Monsieur Saul." This young lady is a rain woman who goes by the name Juvia, also known as Juvia of the Great Sea. "We are members of the Element 4. Lucy gasps, as she drops her groceries, and goes for her keys while saying, "You're with Phantom." Before she can attack, she is encased in an orb of water, surprising her as she struggles. Juvia looks on emotionless as she says, "There is no point in struggling. Juvia's waterlock, Woda Raku, is unbreakable. Just relax, for we will not hurt you, Lady Lucy Heartfilia." As Lucy passes out, and Saul says, "Victoire." However, before they can celebrate their supposed success, the water prison is frozen and cut in half, dropping Lucy into the arms of one of two newcomers to the scene, Kushina Uzumaki Dreyar. The two phantom mages go to respond, but are blindsided by a giant fist which sends them flying, as Makarov Dreyar makes his appearance. Kushina turns to a third person, which is Lisana, and hands the blonde to her. "Take Lucy-chan back to the guild, Lisana-chan. Atusan and I will take care of these two." The white-haired girl nods, as she transforms into a large rabbit and proceeds to hop off with the blonde. The two mages come back, and seeing the former fairy tale master and the current one's wife, prepare to fight. However, Broen Makarov releases his magic, which comes off of him in waves of golden light, and the old man stares them down. He begins to address them. "I had my suspicions that the attack on our guild, and our members wasn't random. Now I understand. It was all a part of Jose's plan to get all of our mages out of the guild so that you could go after a specific one. I would never have imagined it was little Lucy. However, I will not allow you youngsters to take a member of Fairy Tale." Saul, being smart, turns to Juvia and says, "Let us leave, Lady Juvia. We have none the strength to fight against La Titan of Fairy Tale, let alone Z, Queen of Blades. We shall report our mission a failure to Master Jose." The blue-haired girl nods her head in response, and the two disappear into their respective elements. The old man stops exuding his magic power and turns to Kushina and addresses her, "Come, Kushina-chan, let's return to the guild and speak with Lucy about why she kept her true identity hidden." The redhead nods her head, as she follows the old man back to the guild. Oaktown. The phantom mages continue to get their asses kicked by Fairy Tale, as the guild begins to shake from the force of Minato's magic power. Gajeel smirks from his spot and says, "It's time for me to have a little fun," as he leaps off the beam he's on and turns his arm into a metal pole, extending it and hitting not only fairy tale mages but also his fellows in Phantom Lord. Before he reaches the ground, however, he sees a flash of black lightning before feeling a fist implanted in his face, sending him flying and crashing into one of the walls. When he gets up and looks to where he just was, he sees Naruto U. Drayar standing there, sparking with black lightning. He smirks and begins to laugh, "Jahihihi. If it isn't Fairy Tail's God Slayer, Naruto Drayar. You know, I've always wondered which is stronger, God Slayer magic or Dragon Slayer magic." The blonde glares at him before vanishing before the other S-class mage's eyes. A moment later, the black-haired man barely manages to dodge a black wind-encased foot that was aimed for his stomach. His eyes as well as all the other phantom mages widen when the blonde's kick blows a huge hole in the wall, sending out a cyclone of cutting winds that tear up the ground outside. Naruto turns to the Iron Dragon Slayer and finally responds, "You attacked my guild mates, more than that you attacked my little brothers and sister. For that crime I'm going to teach you the true meaning of the word pain. You want to see which is stronger between Dragon Slayer and God Slayer magic? Well then, come and find out." Gajeel growls at the older blonde, before rushing him and beginning their fight. Gajeel throws his fist forward, as a green magic seal appears in front of his fist, and intones, "Iron Dragon's Club." Tetsuryukan, as he turns it into a steel beam and extends it again. Naruto however smirks before ing his fist back, encasing it in black lightning, as a yellow magic seal with black outline appears in front of him. He then throws his fist forward and yells, "Lightning God's Destruction Fist. Kaminari no Hakkaiken," as a large fist of black lightning comes out of the seal and meets the Iron Club head-on. Naruto's attack wins out, as Gajeel is electrocuted heavily because of his iron conducting the lightning, and he's sent flying up into a beam. Naruto goes after him, this time encasing his foot in black ice, as he says, "Ice God's Freezing Kick. Korakami no Toketsu Kiku," as he plants his foot firmly in the Dragon Slayer's stomach, cracking his ribs, making him spit up a little spit and blood, and sending him crashing into the ground hard. Upstairs, Minato destroys the door and wall to the Phantom Master's office, and enters the office, his magic coming off him in waves of lightning as he walks towards a man sitting in a chair at the other end of the room. The man in the chair is a tall, slim man with long, straight, black hair reaching down to his shoulders and a thin mustache. He has a long and sharp face, vaguely pointed ears, prominent eyelashes and dark-colored lips. His attire consists of a flamboyant coat with a high collar that sports a jagged mantle and jagged lower edges, as well as intricately decorated borders and inners, featuring two prominent wings similar to a bat's on the back, with a matching witch-like hat bearing Phantom Lord's symbol, complete with an extremely long, bent top hanging down on the man's left. A plain shirt which sports his Wizard Saint's medallion around the neck, with two light ribbons falling down from it, loose striped culottes paired with long socks, and a pair of pointed shoes each bearing two furry balls, one on the front and one on the back of the foot. His left hand's fingers are adorned by a pair of rings, with one of them sporting a spherical gem. This man is Jose Porla, the master of Phantom Lord. Minato looks at him in anger as the man smiles and says, "Well, isn't this a surprise?" The usually calm Minato Drayar coming into my office in a rage. "To what do I owe this visit, Minato?" The blonde grits his teeth and responds, "You know why I'm here, Jose. You dared to attack my kids, now you must pay the price." He holds up his hand as a yellow magic circle appears in front of him, and he says, "Lightning Wave. Kaminari Vevu," as a large wave of yellow lightning rushes out of the seal and washes over Jose, destroying his chair and the wall behind it. When the smoke clears, it shows that Jose is still there and unharmed, however his body flickers for a moment, and Minato realizes what's up. Thought projection, Shinantai. As I thought. You don't even have the courage to face me yourself, Jose. The other man smiles and responds, "This is merely a precaution. I'm trying to avoid a fight between two of the Wizard Saints." Minato just scoffs at this, however he doesn't get to respond to this comment. The blonde Wizard Saint suddenly senses someone behind him. He turns to find another man, this one slightly taller and much larger than himself, with a brown skin tone, wearing a long coat, a top hat, and blindfold over his eyes. This man's name is Arya, one of the Element Four. Arya begins to cry and says, "So sad. So sad that your life must end here, as he unleashes an attack with his brand of air magic, Kuki Maho, called airspace, Kuiki. Minato feels his magic being ed from him and reacts quickly, as he says, seal magic. Hiraishin. He vanishes in a flash of yellow. Arya is surprised by this as no one has ever escaped his technique before as he turns to Jose and bows his head. I'm sorry master, I was only able to away 3/4 of his magic before he vanished. The black-haired Phantom Master smirks as he responds, it's alright Arya, you did enough. With over half his power gone he won't be much use against us any further, and his loss will send the fairies running. Besides you had more success than Juvia and Sol. Go get Gajeel and come back to base. The large man nods his head and answers back, as you command Master Jose, before he heads off. Back on the ground floor, the fairy tale mages are kicking the Phantom Lord mages' asses. Naruto's fight with Gajeel was interrupted by Natsu, who is now fighting Gajeel Dragonslayer to Dragonslayer. Everyone stops what they're doing when there's a flash of yellow next to Naruto, as Minato appears on one knee, breathing heavily, his skin tone very pale, almost green. Naruto turns to his father placing his arm around his shoulder and says, "What's wrong to-san?" Minato looks at his son with sweat beading his head, and his face pale, as he swallows before answering, "It was a trap. Jose isn't even here, he was a thought projection. While I was distracted by him, one of the element 4 got the drop on me, and started to my magic from me. But I managed to get away with the Hiraishin after 3/4 of my power was ed out. Son, I'm afraid I don't have the strength to continue fighting right now." Naruto scowls at this but asks, "What do you want us to do to-san?" The older blonde looks at his boy and responds, "Sound the retreat. Head back to Magnolia." Reluctantly nods his head to this as he raises his head and yells out, "Retreat! Everyone fall back to Magnolia." Everyone looks at the God Slayer in shock, but seeing their master in the state he's in, they nod their heads and begin to retreat out the busted front doors. The Phantom Mages, emboldened by this turn of events, begins to attack the retreating fairy tale mages. Naruto walks over to Kakashi and Obito and hands his father over to them before saying, "You two take to-san and get back to the guild." The silver-haired S-class mage looks to the man he sees as a little brother seriously and asks, "What about you Naruto?" The blonde takes on serious look and responds, "I'll hold off the phantom bastards. I won't let them touch a single one of you, now go." Kakashi nods his head, as the two men proceed to run off with Minato. Naruto turns to the Phantom Mages as he starts to walk towards them and releases his magical power, which comes off of him in waves of black lightning and brings many to their knees. He addresses them, "I will not allow any of you to get past me. I will not allow you to lay one finger on my guildmates. Come and try your luck if you don't believe me." Many of the mages back away as he continues to get closer. However, the blonde stops when he senses several spells coming at him from multiple directions. Naruto scowls as a blackish-green magic seal appears beneath him and he intones, "Wind God's Tornado Barrier. Fujin no Tatsumaki Barrier." A large funnel of black wind sprouts up around him, not only blocking all the spells but sending them at other phantom mages. When the tornado dies down, the blonde god slayer's eyes flash in anger, as he says, "Big mistake. Now you're all going down." His magic power increases, as he takes a large breath, and a dark gray magic circle edged in black appears in front of him as he yells, "Storm God's Bellow. Arashi no Dogo." He releases a large funnel of black wind with black ice in the center of it, and black water and lightning circling the outside of it. The bellow takes out all the phantom mages, and destroys half the guild hall. Naruto takes a look at his work, dusts off his hands, and turns around to head back to Magnolia. When he gets back to the guild, he comes down into the basement to find all his guild mates looking depressed, Lucy looking guilty, Natsu angry, and Makarov sitting there with his staff across his lap. Mirajane quickly wraps him in a hug saying, "I'm happy you're all right. When you didn't come back with everyone else I was worried that Arya had gotten you like he did Master Minato." The blonde gives her a chaste kiss and replies, "No worries Mirachan. I just stayed back to keep the phantom bastards from attacking the rest of you while you retreated. Arya and Gajiel's magical signatures disappeared shortly after I sounded the retreat, which means they ran like a couple of bitches. So what's the damage?" Makarov looks up at his youngest grandson and replies, "It's better than you'd think. Everyone is tired and has minor wounds, the only real casualty is Minato-chan. He had 3/4 of his magical power siphoned from him. However, poor Lyuzuka-chan says he's young enough still that he can recover without the need to find what was lost. Naruto nods his head and asks, has anyone tried to contact Laxus Baka yet? Mira shakes her head and answers, we were just getting ready to before you walked in. Third Sama was about to contact him via Lacrima. The blonde shakes his head and says, that's not advisable, you know Laxus' hatred towards Yuji-chan. He's still sore over you excommunicating Ivan and then naming Tusan fourth master instead of him. He hates Tusan because he wouldn't reinstate Ivan. So best to let someone else do it. The old man nods his head and turns to Lisana to address her. Lisana-chan, could you call Laxus please? Tell him that we need him to come back to help with Phantom Lord. The white-haired girl nods to the former master and goes to activate the communication Lacrima. Naruto looks at Lucy and walks over to her and asks, don't look so down Lucy-chan, we aren't beaten yet. The blonde spirit mage looks up and replies, but this is all my fault. Everyone looks at her in confusion as Mira asks, what do you mean Lucy? The blonde looks at the S-Class Strauss and answers, while you guys were gone, I was attacked by 2 members of the Element 4. They said I was their target and tried to capture me. They would have succeeded if Makarov-san and Kushina-san hadn't have been there. She pauses as Makarov takes over from there. After finding out that Lucy-chan was the target of the 2 Phantom Mages, I contacted a friend in the Magic Council and found out that Phantom Lord had recently received a S-Class job to recover a teenage girl. The job came from the owner of the company Heartfilia Concern, Jude Heartfilia, and the target was his daughter, the heiress to the Heartfilia fortune, Lucy Heartfilia. Everyone looks at the blonde-haired girl in shock at this, as Natsu says, why didn't you ever tell us you were rich, Lucy? The blonde-haired girl shakes her head and answers, it's not like I tried to hide it. I ran away last year because I couldn't stand living with him anymore. He never paid any attention to me. All he ever cared about was his company. Heck, it took him an entire year just to realize I was gone, and he suddenly decides he wants me back. Well, I will never ever return to the place. She begins to cry and continues, so you see this is all my fault. If I had never joined Fairy Tail, then the guild hall wouldn't have been destroyed, and Master Minato wouldn't have gotten hurt. I'm so sorry. She's surprised when she feels a hand on her head, and looks up into the blue eyes of Naruto, as the older blonde says, it's not your fault, Lucy. Phantom would have found a reason to attack us whether you were here or not. You are a member of this guild, and we'll be damned if we let you get taken back to a place where you're unhappy. The rest of the guild agrees with this sentiment, and she begins to shed tears of joy as she smiles. Thank you everyone. Thank you so much, as Natsu and Gray tell her not to cry. Lisana is talking to Laxus, who's refusing to come back, as she says, Laxus the master is hurt. Phantom is after our guildmate Lucy. Please, you need to come back, we need you. The blonde lightning mage just laughs and responds, then maybe Minato Oji should retire and hand the guild over to someone younger. Ha 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 ha. Lucy? Who is that? Oh, is that the busty new member? If she agrees to be my woman, I'll do whatever she wants. Ha 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 ha. Hearing this, Naruto walks over to the Lacrima, moving Lisana out of the way, and addresses his cousin. Stop with the bullshit, Laxus. The guild is in need of all its S-Class mages, and you are an S-Class mage of this guild. The older blonde scowls at his cousin and replies, what the hell do you need me for? You're there, so is Kakashi and Obito. What's the matter, Itoko? Is Phantom too much for the big bad god slayer to handle? Naruto growls and responds back, at least we're here defending the guild. Unlike you, who is out who knows where, with his tail between his legs and won't come back because he's afraid. Laxus begins to spark and growls back at the other blonde and says, scared? Why, you little shit. I'll come back, but it won't be to fight Phantom. I'm coming back to show you who's afraid, as I kick your ass. Naruto scoffs and responds, keep telling yourself that, Laxus Baka. You know what? Stay where you are. The guild doesn't need a mad dog like you anyway. As Laxus goes to respond, the younger blonde breaks the Lacrima with his fist and turns to the other guild members, we're on our own. We don't need Laxus anyway, we have 5 S-Class mages here, plus Gigi, who is 5th strongest wizard saint. We'll be fine no matter what Phantom throws our way next. Makarov shakes his head at this and says, actually, I'm not going to help. My role in the guild is merely as Minato-chan's advisor, nothing more. The responsibility of defending the guild rests with all of you youngsters, and with Minato-chan. The blonde god slayer smiles softly at the eldest Dreyar and responds, "It's alright Gigi, you're right. You defended the guild for over 40 years, now it's our turn." Everyone reluctantly agrees with this. The moment, however, is ruined as the ground shakes and they hear something mechanical, taking everyone by surprise, including Urza, who is in the guild showers. Everyone rushes outside, to the back of the guild, as that's where the noise came from. The sight that greets them is a large guild hall, with robotic legs lumbering towards Magnolia Town through the lake. Urza, who is standing there in nothing but a towel, asks, "What in the hell is that?" Naruto, who is standing in front of everyone, answers, "That is a mobile guild hall. My guess is it's Phantom." The walking guild hall stops about 2 miles out. All of the Fairy Tail Guild look on in awe and shock, while they all wonder what's going to befall their guild next. A moment later, everyone gets their answer as the front of the Phantom Hall lowers and something extends from the opening. Makarov instantly recognizes it as a magic cannon, and he knows that nothing good could come from this. Just then Jose's voice comes over a PA system. "Fairy Tail, give us Lucy Heartfilia. If you do as I demand, then perhaps you can save your crummy guild hall." Naruto steps up and yells out, "Go screw yourself Porla. Lucy is a member of this guild. She is family and we would never give up a family member. Especially not for the whims of a no-good father who only wants his daughter back to use as an object." Lucy, who is in the back of the crowd, begins to tear up at the other blonde's words, feeling a sense of safety and love, and thinks, "Is this what it's like to have an older brother? It's great." Inside the Phantom Hall, Jose Porla sits in his throne with rage on his face, as he begins to exude his purple magic power from his body. However, after a few moments he takes a deep breath to calm down, and then addresses the blonde god slayer, "If that's the way you want it, then fine. I'll destroy your entire guild and the town behind you and just pick Lucy Heartfilia from the rubble. Ha 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 ha." He then turns to his guild members, "Fire up the Jupiter cannon. Destroy them." As the Phantom Lord members do as ordered and begin the firing sequence for the Jupiter cannon. Naruto grits his teeth as everyone sees the barrel of the cannon begin to spark, and then after a few minutes it releases a large wave of destructive magical energy. Seeing this, Urza rushes forward, becoming engulfed in yellow light for a moment, before it disperses to show her wearing a bulky, darkly colored armor. The armor on her body consists of 2 parts. The first part, a lower plate which covers her stomach and most of her chest, bears a simple diamonds and stripes pattern engraved into it near the top. On top of that lies another plate which hangs from the neck and goes to her midsection. Extending over this top plate are 4 round, metallic extensions which attach underneath the plate around the neck. The neck features a large cylindrical plate which is sectioned off into 6 progressively larger sections. Around each shoulder are very large shoulder guards with 4 distinct sections with a large spike jutting off to separate each section from the next. The armor features large gauntlets bearing the sectioning pattern of the rest of the armor, with the sections becoming smaller as the gauntlets move in towards her hands. Underneath the bottom chest plate is a skirt bearing a woven pattern. The edge of this skirt bears small spikes and a larger spike hangs beneath every other small one, dangling over the leg greaves. The greaves bear the same sectioning pattern as the rest of the armor but are split down the middle with a large piece covering the knee. Several curved spikes jut out from the outward-facing sides of the greaves. Atop her head sits a large, spiked headdress. This armor is called adamantine armor. Kongo no Yoroi is her ultimate defensive armor. The redhead steps in front of her older brother and says, "Stand back Naruto Onisan. I'll protect the guild with my ultimate defense." She combines the 2 shields on the back and creates a large aqua-green magic circle while calling out, "Adamantine barrier. Kongo barrier." However, Naruto is having none of that, as he releases his magic power and it comes off in waves of golden light, the weight of it filling the guild with feelings of safety, hope, and security. He sparks with black lightning before stepping up next to his adopted sister and intones, "Lightning God's shield. Raijin no Shirudo." As a large black and yellow magic seal appears in front of Urza's barrier before morphing into the shape of a large shield made of black and yellow lightning. The beam from the Jupiter cannon hits the lightning shield first, fighting for dominance. After a minute the cannon beam wins out, cracking and destroying the lightning shield. However, when it reaches Urza's barrier it has weakened considerably, and so when it hits the barrier it pushes the S-class mage back a bit. After another 2 minuets the beam eventually dwindles down to nothing, losing out to Urza's barrier. However, the damage has been done as the barrier is now cracked and so is the woman's armor. The redhead releases her technique, before looking to her brother with a small smile on her face. Thank you for the help, Onisan. If you hadn't put up that lightning shield, then that blast might have destroyed my armor and put me out of action for a while. The blonde pokes her in the forehead with 2 fingers in response before saying, don't ever do something so stupid again, Urza Imoudo. If you were hurt, I would be very upset. Urza nods her head at this while looking down in shame. Her lamentations, however, are cut short when Jose speaks again. Well, so it seems you managed to save yourselves from death. For now. You've seen how powerful the Jupiter cannon is, so I'll give you one more chance. Give me Lucy Heartfilia or the next shot will be your undoing. You have 15 minutes to decide. Naruto shakes his head as he answers back, how many times and ways do you want me to say it, Jose? Go to hell. Fairy Tail doesn't abandon their own. Unlike Phantom Lord, we have standards, so you can take your offer and shove it. I'm done letting you hurt my family, I'm coming for your ass. This makes Jose's anger spike. As he screams through the PA, you want to mess with me, boy? Fine, then come and get me if you can. I'll defeat you just like I defeated your father and show you the power of a wizard saint. The man then uses his magic to create a bunch of shades, and sends them out to attack the guild. Naruto, however, looks at his guild mates and addresses them. Okay, here is the plan. Natsu, I want you to get up there and destroy the power source for that cannon. The pink-haired dragon slayer salutes and responds, yes sir. Let's go, Happy. As the blue cat uses Era to make his wings appear, grabs his partner and flies towards the cannon. The blonde then turns to Urza. Imouto, I need you to be part of the team I'm taking inside. Gray, Elfman, and Kakashi, you 3 are the other members of the team. I want each of you to find the members of the Element 4 and Red Fox, and I want you to put them down. I'm going straight after Jose and ending this once and for all. All the named people nod their heads at this, preparing to use their magic to enter the enemy guild hall. He then turns to the rest of the guild but addresses his fiancée. Mira-chan, I want you and Obito to lead the others down here in defending the guild from those shades. The white-haired woman nods her head before she walks up and gives him a kiss and replies, you can count on me, Narukoi. But what about Lucy-chan? Naruto turns to Obito at this. Obito ni, can you use your special authority of the gods, Kamui, spell to transport Lucy to your special dimension? The older S-class mage nods his head. Yeah, but she will only be able to remain there for about 4 hours before I have to bring her back, or she'll die. Only I can survive there indefinitely. The blonde nods his HEA. Okay, then do it. Now let's go. With that order, each of the team going and do different things. Naruto turns himself into lightning and shoots off towards the building. Urza requips to her Heaven's Wheel armor, Tenrin no Yoroi, and flies off towards it. Gray uses his ice magic to make a path for him and Elfman to follow to the guild hall, and Kakashi uses his lightning magic to increase his speed and jumping power to leap over to it. Obito walks over to Lucy, his eyes changing to the Sharingan as he approaches. When he reaches her, he says, Lucy-chan, in order to keep you safe, I'm going to store you in a special dimension that I can create due to the special properties of my Sharingan. Are you ready? The buxom blonde slowly nods her head, as the man's eyes morph, the tome coming together to form a 3-sided pinwheel, before he whispers out, authority of the gods. A second later she feels herself being ed into a vortex and then she's gone. Obito then turns around and walks back to the front of the pack, standing next to Mira and says, you ready, Mira-san? The white-haired woman looks to the elder S-class mage and smirks challengingly before giving her reply, I'm always ready for a good fight. But do you think your brittle bones can handle it, old man? The 35-year-old man gains a tick mark at that question. I'll show you, old little girl. I'm only 35, damn it. Let's see who can take out the most shades. With that, the two call out the battle cry and lead the rest of the guild to attack the shades. Meanwhile, inside the Jupiter cannon, Natsu, after following his older brother Figure's orders, has been having a hell of a time. First he tried to destroy the cannon by hitting the barrel, but all that did was hurt his fists and barely dented the metal. Then when Happy suggested going inside the cannon to try and destroy it, he found the power source, but as luck would have it, it was being guarded by a phantom mage. The pink-haired dragon slayer found out the man standing before him was Totemaru of the Element 4, the member who has control of fire. Totemaru is a young man with long, two-toned hair of black and white that is tied up into a Japanese-style top knot on the back of his head, with the black portion overlaying the front and left side of his head, leaving the smaller white portion concentrated on the left, with the top knot also having the two separate colors correspondingly. On his face, Totemaru sports a simple marking consisting of 3 horizontal black bars passing across the ridge of his nose and both cheeks in a linear formation, with the one in the middle being the longest. He is garbed in a ninja-like attire, consisting of a long, orange-reddish gi-like cloth, held closed by a black belt, with prominent reddish fur around the collar, and with the sides being made of thick fishnet, with other, looser fishnet appearing on his forearms, with his robe's sleeves being rolled up. His attire is completed by a simple shirt appearing from under his gi, and a pair of loose black pants tucked inside simple black boots. He also carries around a simple katana strapped to his left hip. Thinking that he would have an easy victory, Natsu ignited his fists and tried to punch the dual hair-colored man, however his own fist hit himself instead. That is where he is now, sitting on the floor, wondering how the heck he punched himself. The 18-year-old shakes it off and gets up, gets back in his fighting stance and says, "I don't know how that happened, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to kick your ass," as he ignites his right fist on fire again and rushes the other mage a second time. As he reaches him and strikes out with his flame-covered fist, suddenly Totemaru makes a motion with his eyes and once again his fist changes course and hits himself, knocking him back again. Totemaru laughs at this. "I told you, fool, I am the absolute master of fire. No flame can harm me, not even those of a dragon slayer. Give up, you have no hope of defeating me." Natsu rubs his cheek as he sits and thinks about what Naruto would do. After a few moments he realizes that if his magic won't work then he'll just have to use straight hand-to-hand combat, as that is what Naruto would do. So he gets up, wipes his cheek, smirks, and says, "Okay then, if I can't use my flames to beat ya, then I'll just pound you with my fists until you're out cold." He rushes the S-class mage again, only this time without his flames. However, Totemaru is unafraid as he says, "Well then, if you're not going to use magic then I will." He creates a ball of blue flames in his hand and when it's the size of a football he tosses it at the pink-haired teen. But he's shocked when Natsu simply opens his mouth and eats the ball of flames, and because of this he fails to dodge the right hook that lands on his face and sends him flying into the main lacrima for the Jupiter cannon. The lacrima cracks from the force of his body hitting it, but he doesn't care for that. When he recovers he says, How could you just eat my cold flames and not stop?" Natsu smirks at this. "I'm the fire dragon slayer. Fire magic won't work on me. I eat fire to replenish my magic stores as well as recover from my wounds. You may be able to turn my flames against me, but your flames are useless against me. Now get down here so I can finish kicking your ass." The other fire mage growls at this. He unsheathes his katana and responds, "You want a fight? Fine, I'll give you a fight," as he vanishes from sight, and appears right in front of Natsu in an instant going for a slash. The pink-haired teen dodges it by jumping back, however Totemaru follows him slashing at him again. This time he dodges by flipping up into the air. However Totemaru appears in his face again going for a third slash, but this time Natsu counters with a spin kick that sends the man down to the ground. Natsu lands again and the man is in his face once more, however he surprises him by instantly saying, "Fire dragons roar," as he releases the wave of flames point blank. When the smoke clears it shows Totemaru singed, his sword red hot, and a look of rage on his face, as he yells out, "How dare you? You want to play that way? Fine, take this." He creates a large orange magic seal and releases a torrent of yellow-colored flames at the pink-haired teen. Natsu however just smirks and the flames up, however when he finishes he begins to turn green and then vomits. When he's done he says, "Those were the nastiest and stinkiest flames I have ever eaten. Yuck." While he's distracted Totemaru attacks with his katana again, but he senses it and turns around in time to counter, kicking the other fire mage's hands, which results in him releasing his sword and it flying through the air only to hit the crack he made in the main lacrima. As a result of this the lacrima can't contain the energy and explodes, destroying all the other lacrima around it, as well as the gears and whatnot that control the Jupiter cannon. After the explosion has ended, and the smoke clears, Natsu stands in triumph, but not for long as the guild hall starts to move again, and he is hit with his motion sickness. Totemaru appears on a broken gear, and seeing his foe down smirked, "Well, you succeeded in destroying the cannon, but it seems that I have the upper hand." Happy begins to shake his partner saying, "Natsu, get up. Come on, that guy is gonna get you if you don't." However, the Dragon Slayer isn't getting up. Totemaru jumps down and prepares to unleash a fire spell to end the fight. It's over. A fairy could never defeat a phantom. But as he gets ready, suddenly his magic seal disappears and his arms are completely covered in ice, shocking him. What's this? He doesn't get long to ponder it because a moment later he gets uppercutted by a large reptilian arm, as Elfman appears and says, "Real men fly away." True to his words, he's sent Totemaru flying out of hole in the ceiling. After a minuet or two, the guild hall stops moving and Natsu gets up, and who he sees are Gray and Elfman. The pink-haired mage looks confused. "What are you two doing here? I had this under control." This before snarking back, "Yeah right, you were doing just an excellent job of beating him from the floor. Face it, Flame Brain, we saved your ass." The Dragon Slayer pops up at this and butts heads with the Ice Mage. "What was that icicle? You want a piece of me?" However, before the argument can get any further, Elfman separates the two. "Hey, you guys, knock it off. Gray, remember that Naruto Aniki sent us in here to find the Element 4 and take them out, especially now that Abyss Break has been activated." Gray calms down and nods his head, as Natsu asks, "Naruto Aniki sent you guys in here? Well, if you're looking for Element 4, then you just took out the fire guy." Elfman chuckles at this, not having known that before. The big man then gets serious again. "Okay, that's 1 down and 3 to go. Gray, you go and try to find the water woman. I'll look for the earth guy. Urza-san is looking for the air guy, and Kakashi-senpai is looking for black steel. Naruto Aniki will handle the Phantom Master and then it'll all be over." Gray nods his head at this as Natsu clenches his fists and says, "I'm gonna go look for Gajeel. We have a fight to finish. Dragon Slayer against Dragon Slayer." Gray scoffs but responds, "Go do whatever you want, Flame Brain. Not like we need your help to take out the rest of the Element 4. With that, the 3 men separate. With Gray, the black-haired Ice Mage can be found running through one of the halls of the Phantom Guild, searching around for the only female member of the Element 4. He stops for a moment to rest and looks out the window next to him, and when he does, he notices it's raining outside. However, he knows that can't be true because the sun is still shining over near the guild. He concludes that Juvia must be outside, and so he begins search for a way out, which he eventually finds, and comes out onto what looks like it used to be one of the sides of the guild. There he finds his target, Juvia of the Great Sea. This fight goes just like canon. When the fight is over and Juvia lays there defeated, the sun begins to shine down on her for the first time as Gray rubs his wet hair and says, "Looks like the storm in your heart has stopped. Don't ever forget, Juvia-san, you control the rain doesn't control you. That's what it means to be an elemental mage." The blue-haired 17-year-old can only nod along to this and take the Ice Mage's words to heart, while placing the boy upon a pedestal in her mind and declaring internally that he is her one true love. Meanwhile, with Elfman, after separating from Natsu and Gray, the large man began to search for the earth magic user of the Element 4, Saul. He found the man around the same time as Gray began to fight Juvia. At first, every attack he tried just wouldn't work, as the older man would just disappear into the ground and come up somewhere else. Then things went from bad to worse, as Saul began to attack him with earth and sand magic, injuring him greatly. Then, in order to distract him, Saul used his earth magic to teleport Lisanna into the hands of the Robot Guild and hold her hostage, squeezing her between its fingers. Saul, deciding to take advantage of this, used his Merci la Vie spell to make Elfman relive his worst memory, the day he nearly killed Lisanna. That is where we now find the largest Strauss sibling, standing there reliving the memory over and over, as his body slowly starts to become covered in stone. Once the memory loop reaches the 10th time, the big guy shakes his head and remembers what Naruto told him. Elfman, a man isn't someone who lets pride lead him. A man is someone who protects what he loves with both arms and all the strength of his heart. I know that right now you can't do full takeover, but that's okay. It just means this isn't the time to use all your power to protect what you love. When that day comes, though, I know that you will accomplish a full body takeover and show the world who you really are and why it's never smart to hurt what you love." Remembering these words snaps the white-haired man out of his feelings of depression and allows him to make peace with the memory of almost killing his baby sister. It also reminds him that Lisanna is in danger right now, and so with a mighty roar he breaks free of the Earth Mage's spell, as his body begins to let off waves of yellow-colored magic which has the effect of destroying the stones surrounding him. As his magical power reaches its peak, a purple-colored magic seal appears underneath him, as he yells out, "Take over, Beast Soul." When the magic seal finally vanishes, Saul is shocked to see standing before him not Elfman, but the form of the beast. Beast Elfman then proceeds to smack the skinny man away. However, he flips in midair and launches earth spells at the transformed mage, but they are ineffective. Beast Elfman then gets a hold of him and slams him into the ground, then proceeds to punch the living daylights out of the older man. When he's done, the man's face is all swollen and his spirit actually leave his body, but Elfman puts it back inside of him. Then he hears Lysana's voice call out, "Elfman Nee." This makes his eyes stop glowing purple, as he turns away from Saul and rushes out of the hole in the guild and makes his way over all the mechanical crap to reach the hand that Lysana is in. When he lands in front of her, at first the youngest Strauss is scared. However, her fears are put to rest when Beast Elfman uses his strength to pull apart the fingers, grab her, and move her to safety. When she looks up, she sees her brother's blue eyes staring back at her from the beast's form and smiles, as he reverts to himself, frowns deeply and says, "I'm sorry it took me so long, Imoudo. If I scared you, I'm sorry too. Please forgive me for being such a bad older brother." The youngest Strauss just shakes her head. "No need to apologize, Elf Nissan. Sure, I was scared at first when you turned into the beast again, because I remember the last time you tried it. But when I saw your eyes staring back at me and not the beast's, I knew that you'd finally done it. You accomplished your goal. You saved me, and that makes you the best big brother in the world in my books." The big man begins to cry profusely at this as he falls to his knees saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you. I promise Lysana that from now on I will always use all the strength of both my arms and my heart to protect you and Mirane." Lysana just smiles gently, gives her brother a hug and replies, "Okay, Elf Nee, we'll keep you to that promise. We love you." As the two youngest Strauss siblings share a tender moment. With Urza, the red-haired S-class mage can be found standing across from the leader and strongest member of the Element 4, Arya the Great Sky, master of airspace magic. Urza is currently wearing her flight armor, Hisho no Yoroi, which actually has very few armored parts, mostly just on her left leg and arm, while the rest is little more than a cheetah print bikini complete with ears at the top of her head, as well as some blue fabric here and there. The reason for her current armor as well being standing across from Arya is simple. She and Naruto were traveling together through the guild, in search for Jose. However, before they could reach the Wizard Saint, the blonde had a strange feeling. So he told her to get down and he swung around with his left leg and lo and behold he struck Arya. It turns out he had tried to sneak up on them and was planning to do to Naruto what he did to Minato, so that the God Slayer could not fight his master. Naruto then asked Urza if she could handle him, and of course got an affirmative, so he left her there to deal with Arya, while he continued on his way towards Jose. The redhead, knowing that the best way to defeat someone who can use any type of air magic is to use speed re-equipped to her current attire. Now she stands ready for one of the toughest fights of her life. Arya looks the redhead over, before beginning to cry, so sorrowful, it's just too sorrowful. A beautiful woman such as yourself having to be cut down before her time. Where does all th with that he removes his blindfold, revealing that his eyes are magenta colored. I cannot afford to play around with one like you, Titania. So I shall use all of my power, as his body is covered in magical power. He takes a stance with his hands out, straight up, palms up, the right one facing upright and the left inverted, as a purple magic seal appears and he fires off invisible bullets of air. Urza sees the damage the ground is getting and dodges using the enhanced speed of her flight armor, and begins to make her way towards the big man. However, he isn't letting up, as he extends only his left hand and another seal appears. He intones, Zetsu. As he fires off a series of invisible airspaces at the redhead, however she rushes forwards, slashing through each and every one, which causes them to explode as she continues her path towards Arya. The man steps back, taking his first stance again, as a larger magic circle appears this time, and his eyes shine bright, as he says, 0. He creates a very large, spiraling airspace before him, which is visible by a large smoky whirlwind. He chuckles and says, "This is the end for you, Urza Scarlet. The airspace created by 0 is the airspace of death, capable of consuming all life. There is no escape." The redhead sighs at this as he begins to fire off smaller airspaces within the main one, as she once again uses her armor to rush forward, cutting up the smaller airspaces, then cutting 0, which shocks Arya, but only for a moment as she hits him with multiple slashes and appears behind him. The large man can only choke out, "H. How?" before his eyes roll into the back of his head and he falls to the ground face first, defeated. Urza requips back to her usual armor and shakes her head. "That was easy. I would say you were a worthy opponent, Arya, but that's a lie. If you were what Phantom Lord considered as S-class, then your guild was much weaker than we thought." Just then she feels the entire guild shake, and can feel the power of her older brother wash over her. She smiles and turns to make her way out of the Phantom Hall, and rejoin her own guild mates in defending their guild. Well, it looks like Naruto Onisan found Jose and is ready for a real fight. Perhaps the Phantom Master will be the one to push Onisan to finally unleash his ultimate magic. Storm Godslayer magic. With that she makes her way to the nearest exit. With Kakashi and Natsu, the silver-haired S-class mage, knowing who his target was, immediately separated from the others upon entering the Phantom Guild. After searching for a while he finally found Gajeel Red Fox along with some other Phantom mages. Kakashi told the younger man he was going to make him pay for what his buddy Arya did to his sensei Minato. The Iron Dragon Slayer merely laughed at that and said he wasn't even worth his time, so he ordered his guild mates to attack Kakashi. The elder S-class mage made short work of the flunkies using his variety of elemental magics, Aramenturu Maho, to great effect. When that was said and done, the man was preparing to fight his actual target, when the wall burst open and flames spewed through. When the flames died down, Natsu came through the hole. The pink-haired boy took a look around, seeing the unconscious Phantom mages, and then seeing Kakashi he connected the dots before thanking the older mage for taking care of the weaklings for him and that he'll handle Gajeel. This began an argument between the two about who would be fighting the Iron Dragon Slayer, which is what they are still doing. Beginning to get sick of it, Gajeel takes a deep breath as a pale green magic seal appears in front of him and he intones, "Iron Dragon's Roar." Tetsuryu no Hoko, as he releases a tornado of sharpened iron towards the two fairy tale mages. Natsu and Kakashi stop arguing as the younger man turns and quickly lets off a spell, Fire Dragon's Roar. The torrent of flames meets the tornado of iron head-on and causes an explosion, which kicks up a lot of smoke. Kakashi then fires off a spell of his own as a gray magic seal appears in front of his outstretched hand and he says, "Wind Magic. Tornado. Kei's Maho. Tatsumaki." As a mild-sized tornado of wind comes out of the seal and through the smoke, blowing it away, heading straight for Gajeel. The Phantom Mage dodges out of the way and so the tornado hits the wall behind him and blows a hole in it that leads to the outside. This has the effect of letting the two fairy tale mages see how their comrades are doing against the shades, and they're happy to note the Mira is in her Satan soul form, and Obito is using his fire magic to hold the shadow creatures at bay. Kakashi turns to his younger counterpart, "Okay Natsu, here is the deal. We have to take Gajeel together. The quicker we beat him, the quicker we can get back down there to help our comrades." The pink-haired teen nods his head in agreement, and the two turn towards Gajeel, ready to take him out hard and fast. The Iron Dragon Slayer, seeing that his two opponents are on the same page, gulps slightly, as he knows how powerful Kakashi is rumored to be, and he has heard that the Salamander is one of the strongest non-S-class mages in Fairy Tail. However, he smirks at the challenge as he unleashes his magic power, which comes off of him in waves of dark green light, as he says, "You want a piece of me? Bring it." A magic seal appears underneath him and his body begins to change, his skin turning to iron scales as he intones, "Iron Dragon's Scales." Tetsuryu no Yuroko. When it's over with, he grins with his sharpened teeth and proceeds to rush at the two other mages. Kakashi shakes his head before he says to Natsu, "Okay kid, here's the plan. Use your flames to increase your speed. Get behind him and locking in a full Nelson. Then I'll rush him from the front and use my most powerful lightning spell on him." Natsu nods and the two move into action. The 18-year-old summons flames to his feet and uses them to rush past his fellow Dragon Slayer, surprising the black-haired man, which allows him to lock in the full Nelson hold. Kakashi, seeing his chance, summons a dark blue magic circle over his hand, which begins to spark and crackle with lightning. When the seal vanishes, in the silver-haired man's hand is a ball-like mass of blue-colored lightning as he intones, "Lightning Blade. Rakery." He rushes the held-down Dragon Slayer, who begins struggle in his fellow Slayer's arms. However, his struggling is cut short and Kakashi closes the distance in a flash and strikes out with the lightning attack. The attack hits Gajeel in the chest. It doesn't pierce his iron scales, but it does shock him, but also shocks Natsu. However, the pink-haired boy bits his lip to keep from crying out. Gajeel isn't so lucky and cries out in pain, "Gah." After 2 minuets of electrocuting the younger men, Kakashi dismisses his spell. Natsu lets go of Gajeel and hops back from him gingerly. Gajeel stands there smoking, and it seems like he may be out on his feet, but that's proven wrong when Kakashi is suddenly hit by his Iron Dragon's club, and is sent flying into the wall behind himself. Natsu seeing this just grunts and says, "Man, you're a tough bastard. That should have put you down, but I'd bet you only have enough strength left for one more attack, so let's make this interesting. Give me your best and I'll give you mine." The black-haired man smirks and replies, "Sure, let's do it, Salamander." He jumps up in the air and turns his arm to an iron club again and descends toward the fire dragon slayer. Natsu summons up all his magic power, wreathing himself in flames, then takes a special stance, concentrating the flames to his fists and intones, "Dragon Slayer Secret Art. Crimson Lotus. Fire Dragon's Fist. Metsuryu Ogi. Guren Karyu Ken," as he meets the iron club head-on. Natsu's fist and the end of the club meet, causing a shockwave. However, the flames rush over the iron and causes cracks and ruts in it. Natsu then throws the club to the right and then unleashes a barrage of flaming punches to Gajeel's body. Cracking the iron scales with leashes the final punch, he sends the black-haired mage through the roof of the building, destroying it, and making him land in its rubble out cold. The pink-haired teen looks at his handiwork and smirks before pumping his fists in the air and screaming for everyone to hear, "Fairy Tail rules." Immediately after this he becomes faint and starts to fall forward, however he's caught by Kakashi, who just shakes his head and says, "You kids these days, always overdoing things. You did well, Natsu. I'm sure that Minato-sensei, and more importantly Naruto, will be proud of you. Rest now, leave the rest up to us." He heaves the now unconscious teen over his shoulder and walks to the hole outside as he feels his pseudo-little brother's power wash over the entire guild hall and smiles. The war will be over soon. Naruto is going to show Jose why it's unwise to harm a god slayer's loved ones. Time to get back down to our comrades and fight the shades. With that he hops out of the hole with Natsu on his way back to the rest of Fairy Tail. With Naruto, the blonde god slayer, after leaving Urza behind to deal with Arya, began to make his way through the Phantom Guild Hall in search of Jose. On the way, members of the guild tried to stop him and each one met the same fate, one hit and they were co-ed. Now he stands outside the door to the Phantom Master's room, and remembering what the underhanded bastard did to his father, decides to make a Drayar entrance. So using his grandfather's Giant's Wrath spell, he destroys the door and the wall it's attached to and steps inside. As soon as he steps through the dust, he spots Jose sitting on a throne-like chair just waiting. The wizard saint stands up with a smile on his face. "Welcome, Naruto Drayar. I've been awaiting your arrival." The blonde glares at him angrily as he replies, "I bet you have. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but Arya didn't get to weaken me before I got here." The Phantom Lord Master just chuckles at this comment before he uses Requip to change into his wizard saint outfit. His new attire is less flamboyant, looking more militaristic, consisting of a long, grayish coat closed on the right side of his chest by a belt circling his waist and by another one going over his right shoulder, sporting Phantom Lord's symbol on its buckle. The coat has wide golden stripes going down from the high collar, which sports a pair of large rings hanging from it on the front, to the cuffs, with other golden parts in correspondence to the closure and below the waist, on each side. His wizard saint's medallion is still visible on the same spot, but has dark ribbons hanging from it instead. Covering Jose's left arm is a brownish cape, sporting a wide golden-colored stripe near the edges and some small shield-shaped ornaments placed at the same distance from one another. The outfit is completed by loose pants tucked inside boots and no hat, as his hair is tied up in a high ponytail. The man begins to emit magical power from his body, the color of it purple, as he smiles evilly. "Are you ready, boy? You're about to find out how vast the divide between the powers of a wizard saint such as myself and a simple S-class mage like you are." Naruto's response to this is to shake his head and reply, "You really don't get it, do you, Porla? I'm not a simple S-class mage as you just said. There is a reason why I'm considered the third strongest in my guild behind my two San and Godfather. Let me show you what the difference in power is between a dark mage like yourself and a god slayer like me." With these words, the blonde releases his real power. His body begins to emit just as much magical power as the wizard saint, only instead of being golden in color as it was earlier, it is now dark gray, like the clouds of a storm. As Naruto unleashes his power within the Phantom Guild, the weather outside begins to change, as large dark clouds wash over Magnolia. Soon it begins to thunder and there are flashes of lightning throughout the clouds, and then it begins to rain heavily. All the fairy tale mages are confused by the sudden change in the weather, all except for two, Mirajane and Makarov. The old man smiles up at the clouds while thinking, "So you're going all out from the beginning, are you, Naruto-kun? That's good. If there were any opponent that you should release your full might upon, it would be Jose. Wipe the floor with him, grandson, and show him why it's unwise to mess with fairy tale." Back inside, Jose is surprised by the power that the youngest Dreyar is releasing, and cannot believe that he is equal to himself. The wizard saint quickly growls in rage, "You little brat. You think yourself my superior? Well, think again." He summons up a purple magic seal and then moves his hand in a wide arc in front of himself and intones, "Dark Pulse. Yami Perusa," creating an explosion in the area in front of him, right where Naruto is standing. He begins to laugh, thinking that he already defeated the God Slayer. However, his laughter dies down when a blade made of black wind comes out of the smoke right at him. He dodges it by stepping to the right, and when he turns to look at where it came from, he finds the blonde standing there unharmed. Naruto rushes at him, coating his hand in black lightning, water, ice, and wind, and when he reaches the man he goes for a punch, saying, "Storm God's Weather Fist. Arashi no Tenkiken." Jose, sensing how dangerous that attack is, jumps back out of the way, causing Naruto to hit the ground he was just standing on, and blowing a hole in it, as a torrent of stormy weather is unleashed and shears through the whole guild hall and reaches the lake below. Jose has a look of pure and utter shock and outrage on his face as he says, "What kind of magic is that? I've heard you could use Godslayer magics, but nothing like that. What the hell are you?" The blonde pulls his hand from the large hole he just made, stands up tall and replies, "I am Naruto Uzumaki Dreyar, adopted son of Zarok, the god of storms. I am the Storm God Slayer. Now stop running and fight." With that, he rushes the guild master again, his hands and feet covered in Storm God Slayer magic. However, Jose coats his limbs in darkness magic and the two begin to engage in a fast-paced fist fight. Both men are moving so fast the normal human and even most mages wouldn't be able to catch but a glimpse of them. Each time they meet, their strikes cause shock waves of storm and darkness magic which destroys everything around them. However, after 10 minuets of this, Naruto gains the upper hand by landing a kick to Jose's stomach which breaks a number of his ribs and sends him crashing into the stairs to his throne. The blonde lands at the bottom of the stairs, where he originally started the fight, and looks at the wizard saint with absolute disdain. As he begins to walk towards the downed man, he hears him laughing and asks, "What's so funny, Porla?" The guild master instantly stands up and answers, "You've fallen into my trap, Shade Entangle. Shido Makikomu," as his ghosts appear and grab onto the blonde god slayer. Jose laughs as Naruto begins to struggle in the hold of the shades as they strangle him. "It's useless. The harder you struggle, the tighter their grip will become. It's over for you, boy." The blonde glares at the man and through the shade that has his throat intones, "Storm God's Lightning Strike. Arashi no Rakurai," as a large bolt of black lightning comes crashing through the roof from the sky and hits him and the shades. The shades are disintegrated instantly, and Naruto drops to the ground unharmed. Jose openly gapes at this, as he didn't expect the boy to be able to use natural storms to his advantage. However, he begins to think and remembers that the storm outside started when the blonde released his powers. He scowls and asks, "That storm going on outside right now? You created it, didn't you? That's why you were able to call that lightning bolt just now?" Naruto simply nods, before he summons a large gray with black outlined magic seal above his head. The rain outside begins to pick up, as does the force of the wind, as the laco large waves. Once the lake waters reach 60 feet in height, and the winds reach over 200 miles per hour, it all rushes towards the hole in the roof created by the lightning. Naruto summons forces he just created and says, "Storm God's Crushing Tsunami. Arashi no Hasai Tsunami," as he brings the full force of a tsunami down on the wizard saint, all the winds and waves. The harsh black winds and heavy black wave destroy much of the room they're in. Naruto is unaffected because of his resistance to storms of all kinds. Plus, he's floating above all the water that now fills the room. When the attack stops and the water begins to drain away, Jose is nowhere in sight. However, Naruto senses him immediately and looks at one of the remaining ceiling beams to find him standing there safely out of harm's way. When the water has drained to little more than puddles, the two men land on the wet floor again, Jose glaring at the blonde in hatred, while Naruto just smirks at the work his spell did to the room. However, his smirk fades when Jose's power spikes and he yells out, "You will pay for this, you insolent child. I've had enough of you and your guild. It's time to die." He summons a purple magic seal and calls out, "Dark Beam, Yami Bimu," as he fires of a large beam of dark magic at the blonde. Naruto, however, already has a counter ready. He in a huge breath, as a large gray and black magic seal appears in front of him, before he releases it intoning, "Storm God's Bellow, Arashi no Dogo," releasing a large beam of black lightning, water, wind, ice, and snow. The two spells meet head-on, fighting for dominance. However, Naruto's spell wins out, shearing through the dark beam and heading straight for Jose. The bellow hits the wizard saint and sends him flying back towards his throne, as he is drowned, electrocuted, cut up, and frozen all at once. He hits his throne, breaking it, and lands in a heap on its rubble. Naruto begins to walk towards the downed man again as he speaks, "It's over, Jose. No matter what you do from here on in, you can't win. All your S-class mages lay defeated. Your shades have done minimal damage to my guild hall and my comrades. Now you, the guild master, lay at my feet defeated. This war is over and Fairy Tail is the victor." He stops halfway up the stairs as the man stands to his feet again, a crazed look on his face as he laughs hysterically and says, "You're right, this war is over. But the victor is me. Die, boy." He holds his hand out, gathering up shades as a large magic seal appears in front of him, and he swipes his right hand forward and yells out, "Dead wave, Dedo Vevu," as he sends a large wave of ghosts rushing towards the blonde, splitting everything in its path. Naruto, who is shocked by this, has no time to put up a defense. However, they both hear another voice call out, "Light Shield, Hikari Shirudo," as a golden-colored magic seal appears in front of Naruto, protecting him from the attack. When the smoke clears from the dark magic, the two men look to where the voice came from to see Minato Drayar standing there, wearing his wizard saint's cloak, and looking equal parts relieved and pissed. Naruto stands there as his father walks over to stand in front of him, and says, "To-san, what are you doing here? You should be resting. Does Ka-chan know you're out of bed?" The Fairy Tail master chuckles at his son's words, "Ha ha ha. Yes, Naruto, your mother knows I'm out of bed and here. No need to worry, son. I'm back to full strength, with a little help from Mistogen." He glares at Jose real quick, before he continues to address his son, "You've done well, Naruto. Not many people can go toe-to-toe with a wizard saint and come out on top. I'm proud of you, son." Naruto smiles and blushes a little bit at his father's praise, as the man begins to rub his short spiky hair, "But I'll finish things from here, kiddo. Me and Jose have unfinished business to see to. So rein your powers back in, and bring back the sun, or your mother might just make you clean our house for a month." The younger blonde chuckles at this, knowing that his mother is crazy enough she'd do it too, so he brings his power back under control, and as he does, the storm outside subsides and the sun begins to shine again. Naruto nods to his father as he turns to walk away, but not before leaving one parting shot, "Kick his ass back to the circus, To-san." With that, he turns himself into lightning and exits the hole in the ceiling, leaving the two guild masters to finish things up. Minato turns to Jose and says, "I'll make this short, Jose Porla, because I can tell you're on your last legs after fighting my son. The war is over, your guild has lost. By the ancient laws that govern Fairy Tail, I will give you only one chance to admit defeat. Get down on your knees and beg for forgiveness. You have only 3 seconds to comply." With that, Minato begins to gather light magic, and starts to count, 1. As he forms it into a ball between his hands, Jose says, "Me bow to you, fairies? Not a chance." The blonde says, 2. As the other man continues to rant, "I am the most powerful. My guild is the strongest. You are nothing compared to me. Die." With that, he summons up a second dead wave and fires it at the other wizard saint, just as the man says, 3. As he claps his hands together and says, "I invoke Fairy Law, Fury Ro." As a bright light envelops the area, destroying the ghosts. Outside, the Fairy Tail mages see a dome of light magic envelop the top of the Phantom Guild Hall as the clouds part and a large beam of light descends from the sky and causes an explosion of light. Kana, seeing it, asks, "What the heck is that?" Makarov steps forward to answer, "That is one of the 3 legendary spells of Fairy Tale, Fairy Law. The war is now over with this spell being used, as it destroys all those the caster perceives as their enemy." Everyone stares in shock at this news. Back inside, the light dies down to reveal Jose standing with his arms in front of his face to shield his eyes from the brightness. However, when he lowers them, he's shown to have changed. His hair has gone white, and his face looks more aged. The man falls to the ground, unable to feel his magic power, as Minato takes a calming breath and says, "Return home, Jose, and await the word from the council. I'm sure that after this your title of Wizard Saint will be revoked, but I think I know just who they'll replace you with. It's over." Just then he senses someone behind him, turns his entire arm to lighting and backhands them. It's revealed to be Arya, as the big man is sent flying head over heels into the only remaining wall. Minato shakes his head, "The same trick won't work on me twice." With that he turns and flashes away. He appears in front of all of the guild members who are looking at him expectantly, as he smiles warmly and declares, "Fairy Tale wins." This sends all the members into cheers. As Lee-sana kisses the newly conscious Natsu, Mira and Naruto share a passionate embrace. Kushina gives Minato a hug, and Makarov smiles proudly at his former children. Obito then uses his authority of the gods to bring Lucy back, and tells her the outcome of the battle. The blonde celestial mage smiles happily at the news that her guildmates won, and that she doesn't have to go back to her father if she doesn't want to. That night the guild throws a huge party in the basement to celebrate the defeat and ultimate end of Phantom Lord. However, while everyone else parties, Minato, Kushina, Naruto, Mira, and Makarov sit quietly and watch, the 5 of them knowing that the next few days are going to be rough. They know that they're going to have to explain to the council about what happened between themselves and Phantom, as well as having to rebuild the guild, and dealing with the possibility of Fairy Tale gaining another Wizard Saint. On top of that, they know that Laxus will be returning soon, and that brings a whole bunch of other troubles in itself. But they all agree that no matter what happens, they will face it together, as a family, because at the end of the day that is what Fairy Tale is, family. The guild war between Phantom Lord and Fairy Tale ended. A few things have happened in that time. First and foremost, Lucy gave her thanks to the Dreyar family as well as her guild mates for their willingness to protect her even at the cost of the hall. Minato just chuckled at this and told her it wasn't a problem because as a father it's his job to protect all his children, while Naruto said that it's an older brother's duty to see to his younger siblings' safety and happiness. The day after the war ended, Lucy left the guild to go and confront her father Jude Heartfilia. However, she didn't expect to find Naruto and Mira on the train with the intent of doing the same thing themselves. The 3 went to the Heartfilia estate, which is huge, having its own village just for the staff and their families. There the mansion staff were happy to reunite with Lucy. The buxom blonde was then told that her father wanted to meet with her in his study and that he requested she change her clothes, which she was presented with a dress that resembled her late mother's usual attire. Naruto told her to just stay in what she was wearing, and the 2 of them went to the man's office to speak. Jude, upon seeing the other blonde, was both perturbed and annoyed. He thanked Naruto for escorting his daughter back to him and told him to leave them alone to speak. Instead, the God Slayer refused and proceeded to lay into the man. Naruto informed Jude that he was the son of Fairy Tale's master and that Lucy was a member of the guild and therefore his little sister, and he'd be damned before he allowed a bastard like him, Jude, to use the girl for his own ends. The man proceeded to ask his daughter if she felt the same way, to which she said she did, and he said it was unfortunate, to which Naruto told him that because of his selfishness the guild was destroyed, and those he considered brothers and sisters had been injured. When the man showed no remorse for his actions in inciting the guild war, the God Slayer informed him that if he ever threatened his guild and his family again that he, Naruto, would come back and destroy him personally. After this, Jude kicked them out and told Lucy that she was cut off. If she wanted to be a mage, then she could live as one, meaning from job to job. With this, the 3 returned home to the guild. In the midst of all of this, the guild members have begun to rebuild the guild, but not the way it was before. No, Minato decided to rebuild it bigger and better than ever. To do this, he dug out some old building plans his father made long ago but never got around to implementing, and instructed his children where to start. So far the building has been going well, with everyone pitching in, and with lackeys woodmake. Yudo Maiku. They aren't running out of wood with which to build anytime soon. However, today finds Minato and Naruto Dreyar in Era, the base of operations for the Magic Council. The reason for the duo's visit is that the council has called them there to talk about the guild war, as well as the defeat of Jose. The two men are standing in the center of the main council room, as all 10 members of the council stare at them, before the second-in-command org decides to finally address them. Minato Dreyar and Naruto Dreyar, you two have been called here before the council to answer our questions regarding the guild war between your fairy tale and the Phantom Lord Guild of Jose Porla. Answer our questions truthfully and you shall not be punished too severely. Naruto scowls at the old man's words, while Minato has on what the other blonde calls his wizard saint face. Minato nods to Org and says, Honorable Council, let's cut out all the questions, shall we? You want to know how the war started and why? Phantom Lord started the guild war. First Jose sent Gajeel Red Fox to put up our guild hall. Now that was nothing too serious, and so despite a few of my members calling for payback, I saw fit to turn them down and let them know that it was meaningless as no one was harmed. The council members all nod to this, thinking it a smart decision, as the blue-haired Seagrain just looks thoughtful. Minato continues to speak. However, the next night Gajeel returned and attacked 3 of my children. He beat them badly and then pinned them to a tree with the phantom symbol painted on their stomachs. That was when I decided it was time to counter-attack, and so we launched a strike on Phantom's guild hall. That was going well until I went to confront Jose. The man was a coward. He sent a thought projection of himself and I was ambushed by Arya of the Element 4, who drained me of more than half my power before I got away. After I appeared next to my son here, I told him to order the retreat, which thankfully he did. Naruto nods his head at his father's words, as the council continues to listen raptly. After that I was taken to my mother for medical treatment and was told that I'd recover, but it would take a while, so it fell to my son to take command of the guild in my absence. So I'll let him speak from here. With that he nods to the younger blonde who picks up where his father left off. After that everyone was relaxing. We found out from Gigi that Porla Teme sent the water and earth users of the Element 4 after one of our guild mates, Lucy Heartfilia. Seems Phantom was hired by her father Jude to basically kidnap her. The older council members glare at the 21-year-old for his language before Org says, Watch your tongue, Naruto Dreyar. Continue with the tale. The blonde just nods before taking a breath and continuing. Well, after finding that out we all heard a loud banging sound and the ground shook. We rushed out to see what it was and found it was a mobile guild hall, and it belonged to Phantom. From there Jose demanded us to hand over Lucy and I told him where he could shove it, so he tried to destroy us in Magnolia using a Jupiter cannon. This news shocks many members of the council as the Jupiter cannon is something they outlawed a while back. However, Naruto continues, me and my Imouto Urza managed to block the cannon beam with our magic. Then Jose said he'd fire again, so I ordered Natsu Dragneel to destroy the cannon, while I myself lead a team into the Phantom Guild to take out the Element 4, Gajeel, and Jose, with me taking on Jose. Each of my guild mates encountered who they were supposed to and defeated each of the Phantom S-class mages in turn. All of the council members are impressed by this, as he continues, Urza took on Arya after he tried to do to me what he did to my father, leaving me free to head straight to Jose. When I reached him he changed into his wizard saint clothes and we proceeded to battle. His use of darkness magic was powerful, but when put up against the power of my Storm God Slayer magic it was nothing. No man can beat a storm. Anyway, I actually beat him. I had him down and out and was walking over to give him a chance to give up when he suddenly attacked me with a dead wave. It was at this point Toussaint showed up and took over. The older blonde takes over for his son. I told Naruto here to head back to the other guild members while I finished Jose. Wizard Saint, Master to Wizard Saint, Master. As per the guidelines set down in my guild by the first master, I gave him 3 seconds to surrender. However, he was stubborn, so I used fairy law. The results were him losing his magic and being utterly defeated. The Magic Council takes this all in, weighing the facts and the evidence collected in their own independent investigation of the events. After conferring together silently, they come to their decision. Org clears his throat before speaking. Based upon your telling of events as well as the evidence that we collected ourselves, we have no choice but to declare Fairy Tail not culpable in the guild war. This ruling makes the 2 blondes let out sighs of relief, but Org continues, furthermore it is this council's decision that Phantom Lord as the guilty party will disbanded. All their mages to become independent or join other guilds. Jose Porla will be stripped of his rank and title as a Wii in prison. Also the council shall provide financial assistance to Fairy Tail in the rebuilding of your guild hall. Minato bows to the council at this. Thank you, great council, for your help. If that is all, then we shall take our leave. With that he stands back up to his full height and motions his son to follow him as they prepare to leave the council chamber. However, they are stopped by Org. Hold on for a few moments longer, dryers. This causes the two to turn back to the council with questioning looks. Org motions to Naruto and says, in light of Naruto Dreyar's defeat of Jose Porla, who though the second weakest, was still a wizard saint. We the council have decided the perfect person to fill the man's slot as a wizard saint, therefore we would like to extend an offer to join the wizard saints to you, Naruto Dreyar. This shocks both men, however Minato quickly goes from shock to pride. Pride that his son is seen as strong enough to be named one of the 10 strongest wizards on the continent. Naruto is blown away, however that quickly changes to suspicion. The younger blonde decides to ask the question on his mind, what's the catch to this little offer? Will I be culpable to you old fogies? Because if so, no thanks, I already get my ass kicked by a way too powerful old man when I screw up. At this Minato chuckles while shaking his head, while most of the council members scowl at his words. The only ones who don't are Seagrain, a young buxom woman named Ultir Milkovich, and a small man, with bushy eyebrows and a square mustache, wearing an orange-striped shirt named Yujima, who used to be a member of Fairy Tail. It's Yujima who decides to speak though. No, young man, you would not be culpable to us. You would however have to take missions specifically given by us from time to time, and trust me, the missions we give are a bit harder than your standard S-class jobs. Other than that, you'd be free to do as you always do, but would have the respect and prestige that go with being a wizard saint. Not to mention it would bring more clients to Fairy Tail, what with it having produced 4 wizard saints. Naruto thinks about this for a few moments before he shrugs his shoulder and says, okay, why not? I'll take your offer and become a wizard saint, but I refuse to be called the weakest or second weakest member. If anything, I'm the 8th strongest member, maybe even higher. The council sighs at this as Yujima smiles and thinks to himself he's just like Maki, so self-confident and stubborn. Seems it skips a generation as Minato boy was humble and honored when he was first made a wizard saint. So Naruto is inducted into the wizard saints, given the medallion, which he puts on a cord and hangs around his neck, and gives one of his coats to the council so they can have the wizard saints symbol stitched on the back of it. All of this takes 4 hours, and then Naruto and Minato are out the door and headed back to Magnolia via the Hiraishin. Magnolia in front of Fairy Tail. When they appear outside of the guild, Naruto turns to his father and says, Hey Two-san, can we not tell the guild just yet about me being a wizard saint? The older blonde looks at his son in confusion and asks, Why not, son? Everyone will be happy to hear about it. A big party will be thrown in your honor and you'll be center of attention. The God Slayer gives the older man a look at that and responds, That's exactly why. I don't want to be center of attention at the moment. Everyone needs to focus on rebuilding the guild and taking missions when they can. They don't need to throw me a party for another accomplishment. Minato nods his head in understanding before he clasps his boy's shoulder. I understand, Naruto. We won't tell the guild. But I say we do tell your mother, grandfather and grandmother, Urza-chan. And you really need to tell Mira-chan. The younger blonde nods at this and replies, Okay, we'll tell those 5, but only them, and in private, and we have to make them promise not to tell anyone else. Especially Ka-san and Gigi. Minato laughs at this, knowing just how big a deal his wife and father both would make out of it, so much so they'd most likely make up banners declaring his wizard sainthood and place them all over Magnolia for all to see. So he nods his head to the nearly 21-year-old's request and they head into the building site of the guild hall. As soon as they enter the building site, everyone is excited to see them, but none more than their significant others. Kushina and Mira come up and give their men kisses, before the redhead asks the question on everyone's minds, So how did it go? Minato just smiles before giving his reply for everyone to hear, It went just fine. The Magic Council has decided that we aren't to blame for the guild war and that all the blame rests on Phantom. They've decided to disband Phantom Lord and imprison Jose, as well as to provide us financial support in rebuilding the guild. At this everyone cheers, and begin to talk about how it serves those Phantom's right. Makarov comes over to ask another question of his son, Have they made a decision on who will replace Jose amongst the saints? The 4th master shakes his head in reply and responds, No, not yet. They said that they'll be having their eyes out for any up-and-coming mages that look like they could fit in with the wizard saints. The eldest Dreyar nods his head at this before he walks off to get back to helping in rebuilding the guild with his titan magic. Mira, who is still in Naruto's arms, pouts at this. Why didn't they just offer it to Naru-kun? I mean, he kicked Jose's butt real good before you finished him off, master. Naru-kun could definitely be a wizard saint. The younger blonde chuckles at this, kissing the top of her head and saying, I don't think so, babe. Being a wizard saint just isn't my style. I enjoy the freedom I have as a fairy tale mage. I would hate to represent those jackasses of the Magic Council. Hearing his words, Kushina walks up and slaps him in the back of the head. Show some respect, Naru-chan. The Magic Council may be jerks sometimes, but they keep the peace between mages like us and normal people. The S-class mage rubs the back of his head while looking a bit hurt. Ow. Damn it, Ka-san, do you always have to hit so frickin' hard? I was only making a point, geez. Minato laughs at the interaction between his wife and son before clapping his hands to get their attention. Alright, I think that's enough mother-son bonding. Let's all get back to what's important, rebuilding. The three S-class mages nod their heads all at once and proceed to get to work on the rebuild. Later that night, after a long day of work, most of the guild members have gone home. However, the Dryers, which includes Urza and Mira, are still there. Minato, seeing that everyone is present, says, Alright, since everyone is here, let's head to Ka-chan's. As he prepares to use the Hiraishin to teleport them all, Makarov asks, what is so important that all of us had to stay behind just to head to poor Lyuzuka-chan's? Naruto is the one to answer this question. You'll find out when we get there, Oji-chan. Just know that we have some big news and Oba-chan has to hear it too. The old man doesn't like it but agrees nonetheless, and they all vanish in a flash of yellow. When they reappear, it's outside of the healer mage's treehouse, and within a second the pink-haired woman is standing on her porch staring at the group. She smiles seeing her son, daughter-in-law, and grandson, but scowls at Urza, her lover, and her grandson's girlfriend. Not that I'm not always happy to see you, Kushina-chan, and Naruto-chan, Minato-chan. But might I ask why you brought all these people to my house? The blonde-haired 45-year-old just smiles at her as he answers, Sorry, Ka-chan, I know how much you hate humans, with certain exceptions, but Naruto has some big news to share and he wanted to tell everyone he loves at once. Poor Lyuzuka sniffs at this, before her features soften and she says, Fine, everyone can come in. But I will not be fixing everyone any food. With that she turns to lead them to follow her, past the treatment room and into her living space. They all take a seat, with Kushina and Mira taking seats in their men's laps, as poor Lyuzuka asks, Alright, what's your big news, Naruto-chan? The youngest blonde chuckles as he says, Well, this is my surprise. He reaches down into his shirt and pulls out the Wizard Saint medallion, displaying it for all to see. The reactions are instant, all the women look on in shock, while Makarov gains a look of pride on his face as he says, That's a Wizard Saint medallion. The only way to get one is to be made a member of the Saints. Naruto, are you telling us that you're the newest member of the Saints? The 20-year-old nods his head gently at this, as the old man turns to his son, and you knew about this all the time? Why did you not let it be known around the rest of the guild? Minato sighs before answering, it was by Naruto's request to Chan. He doesn't want anyone but the immediate family to know. He wants the guild to focus on rebuilding the hall, rather than throwing some huge party for him and getting big-headed just because Fairy Tail now has 4 wizard saints. The former master nods sadly at this, knowing that his son is right. Urza looks at her older brother with admiration and great respect. I'm proud of you, Oni-san. I always knew that one day you'd become a wizard saint. I for one will respect your wishes and keep this secret. Naruto nods in thanks to her, as Mira hugs him tightly and gives him a long, passionate kiss, and when they part says, I'm proud of you to Narukoi. I love you so much, and I know that you'll do that medallion proud and rise through the ranks quickly to take the number 1 spot. The God Slayer chuckles at his love's confidence in him. Thank you for that, Mira-chan. Kushina pouts at her son as she says, I'm proud of you to Sochi, but why can't we tell anyone? I mean, something like this deserves to be celebrated and shouted from the roofs. The younger blonde pats his love to let her know to get off of him, which she does, as he stands up and walks over to his mother and father and gives Kushina a hug as he answers, I don't want anyone but the people in the room to know right now because it would just make everyone in the guild lose focus and get arrogant. They'll start to think that because I'm a wizard saint now that I'm virtually unbeatable and start neglecting their training, thinking that I'll always be around to keep the guild safe. Everyone nods their heads at this, knowing that it's likely true, as the older redhead just looks down sadly. However, her boy smiles warmly at her and continues, at least with me being just an S-class mage and the third strongest in the guild, well fourth if you consider Gramps, then all the youngsters have something to strive to. All the mages younger than myself in the guild train hard in the hopes that one day they'll reach my level and beat me. Because of that the guild stays strong, and that to me is enough praise and recognition. The strongest woman in fairy tale smiles at him, and says, okay, I understand, Naru-chan. I'll keep it a secret from everyone. I'm so proud of you, and love you so much. The blonde kisses her forehead and replies, thank you, Ka-chan. I love you too. He then turns to his grandmother and asks, well, Oba-chan, what do you think? The pink-haired healer shakes her head with a wry smile on her face as she answers, it's quite the achievement, Naruto-chan. Wizard Saint at just over 20 years of age. You beat your grandfather by 25 years, and your father and mother by about a year. Good job, grandson. The young man smiles in thanks to her, as Makarov grumbles about his love being so mean to him. After everyone promises to keep it a family secret, they all leave. Well, except Makarov, as he and poor Lyuzuka already had dinner plans. Minato and Kushina head back to their home, while Urza heads to Fairy Hills, and Naruto and Mira head off to their favorite restaurant for a late dinner. While sitting in the restaurant waiting on their food to arrive, the young couple look at each other lovingly. However, Mira suddenly perks up and asks, so we still need to discuss the date of our wedding, Naru-kun. Now I know that every time I bring it up you talk about money and the timing and whatnot. But I figure now that you're a saint the money issue is void. So that leaves the time issue. Now I know that the later months of the year are busy, what with the Fantasia parade as well as your birthday in October, and then the S-class exams in December. The blonde nods along to what his love is saying as he responds, yeah, the guild is always busy. Then you have to take into account all the S-class jobs I take all the time. Plus you have to take into account everyone else's schedules. There is just never a good time. Thank you. At this moment the waiter arrives and sets their food down in front of them. Naruto has ordered a big bowl of tempura udon, while Mira has a plate of chicken Alfredo. The white-haired woman looks at the blonde and says, November the 15th this year. That is when we'll have our wedding. Naruto chokes on his noodles at this, as he coughs and takes a drink of his wine to try and clear his throat. Mira giggles at how cute he looks. Once he has his coughing under control he responds, why November 15th? She smiles coyly at him and replies back, because it's right in between the Fantasia parade and the S-class exams, which are in December. The blonde sighs and says, alright, fine. We'll have our wedding on November the 15th this year, and we can have it inside of Cardia Cathedral. But my dear Demonheim, you have to make a decision on who will be your maid of honor. Kana, Urza Imouto, Lisana, or Biska. The S-class woman smiled brightly at him for agreeing on the date, but then pouts cutely at his comment about choosing a maid of honor. In response she says, what about you? Who is going to be your best man? Naruto swallows his food as he smirks and answers, it's a toss-up between Two-san or Obito. Mira-Jane is shocked at this as she swallows her pasta and says, so you only have two candidates? Why not include Elfman or your godfather or even Kakashi? The blonde shakes his head as he begins to name off why those named are bad ideas. I love your little brother, sweetheart, but he's too loud and boisterous and would constantly be screaming about being men to everyone. As for Gildart's Kyofu, he's away on that 100-year mission and we have no idea when he'll be coming back, so he's out. And Kakashi is too much of a pervert for my tastes. I mean, he's constantly reading those erotic books by Jiraiya Yagama. She smiles seductively at this and says, you didn't seem to have a problem with those books when we were reenacting a scene from one a few nights ago, Naru-koi. The blonde blushes slightly at this and responds, I did that for you. You're the one who wanted to roleplay that night. I swear I don't understand how you and Urza Imouto can stand to read that smut. She gives him a saucy look as she responds, that so-called smut has given me many ideas that I've used on you, and never once heard you complain. Besides, it's not all smut. The books do have very good plotlines and character development. The blonde god slayer shakes his head, as she just giggles at his aversion to perverted stuff, which is funny considering most time he walks around their house in either only boxers or nothing at all. After dinner is done, Naruto pays for it, and the two walk out hand in hand as they head for home. Though halfway to their house Mira changes to holding tightly to his arm with her head leaning against his shoulder. They finally reach their home, It's a two-story house, painted in blues and yellows. It has 4 bedrooms, 3 of which are guest rooms in case any of their siblings come over to spend the night. The master bedroom, which is their room, has its own attached bathroom, as well as a large closet which is mostly filled with Myra's clothes and shoes, along with a king-sized bed. Naruto unlocks the door and the two enter the house, only to find Urza, Elfman, Lisana, and Natsu sitting in tea. Blonde God Slayer gains a tick mark over his right eye as Mira giggles. The blonde says, "What the hell are all of you doing in our house?" Lisana giggles at this and responds, "Natsu wants to fight you again, and Elf Ni had something to say to you." Naruto sighs at this as Natsu lights his fist on fire and jumps at him saying, "Fight me." The blonde grabs the pink-haired Dragon Slayer by the throat and slams him into the floor, softly so it doesn't dent. He looks at the teen and says, "Not tonight, Natsu, and not in my house. You still have a long ways to go to fight me, kid. Please get out of my house now." Then he turns to Elfman, who stands up, rubbing the back of his head, and says, I just wanted to thank you, Aniki, for all the training you did with me the last 2 years. Because of it, when I did a full takeover against Saul, I managed to keep control." The blonde pats the larger man on the shoulder, smiles and replies, "You're welcome, Elfman. I'm happy I could provide some help for my future brother-in-law. Now if there's nothing else, could you all please leave, unless you plan to have a freaking sleepover." At the mention of a sleepover, all their faces light up, that is until Mira begins to emit an aura of death while still smiling. Seeing this, everyone knows what it means, so they get up and leave, with Urza leaving last after her brother kissing her forehead, and her best friend giving her a hug. The two lovers head upstairs and spend the rest of the night making wild and passionate love. The next couple of days are pretty routine. Everyone shows up bright and early to work on the guild, and then leave at around 7 p.m. to go eat and get some rest. A few people even take jobs so as to keep up their rent and food expenses. Also during this time, everyone finds out the truth about Loke, that he is in fact not human but is actually a celestial spirit. Moreover, he is Leo the Lion, leader of the other zodiac spirits. Lucy figured this out, and at a waterfall near a spa with a headstone on a cliff, confronted the orange-haired man. She found out that he had been banned from the spirit realm because of the actions he took with his prior celestial mage. Said celestial mage was a woman named Karen Lilica, who was a member of Blue Pegasus Guild and was a famous spirit mage. However, what no one knew is that she was abusive towards her spirits, treating them as nothing more than tools, especially the female spirit Ares, who he was close to, using them as shields and entertainment for her many boyfriends. One day she decided she would bring Ares to the human world and keep her there for 7 days, something that would have killed her, so he switched places with her and demanded she terminate the contracts, to which she denied and tried to close his gate, but he kept it open. Him being in the human world kept her from summoning any other spirits, and he took up residence in some nearby ruins for her to give in to his demands, and after 10 days she tried to talk him into returning, but despite being much weakened he refused, as she did to his demands. After a month she pleaded with him to return to the spirit world, promising him to never mistreat her spirits again. However, he saw through this lie, and so she stomped on him and proclaimed that once he was gone she would summon Ares and treat her 10 times worse. 3 months after that he started feeling more used to the human world. However, he found out from Master Bob that Karen had died on a mission. She had tried to summon a second spirit for battle and failed, and was killed by a dark mage. For this crime of allowing his summoner to die, the celestial spirit king exiled him from the spirit world, and stripped him of his status as leader of the zodiac. After hearing this, Lucy decided that she would not allow Loke to die or suffer for doing the right thing, as Karen was a bitch, so she summoned all her spirits at once, and in doing so managed to summon forth the celestial spirit king. The girl made an impassioned speech and plea to the king, which got to his heart, and he agreed to forgive Loke and allow him home and his position back. As a result of this, Lucy gained Leo's golden key and can now summon Loke whenever she wants. Today, however, finds everyone hard at work, including Naruto and Mira. Everyone is having a good old time rebuilding the guild and working together like family. However, that's shattered by an argument between Urza and the man who just arrived back to the guild after weeks away, Laxus Drayar. The redhead can be heard saying, "What did you say, you bastard?" The 23-year-old lightning mage, who is sitting at a table, chuckles and replies, "I think you heard me just fine, little girl. I said this guild is filled with weaklings who allowed a second-rate guild like Phantom to destroy the guild hall without a fight. The reason for this weakness can be directly laid at the feet of Gigi and Minato Oji. This causes Urza to begin shaking in rage as she screams out, "Laxus!" However, before she can move to attack him, the blonde is knocked from his seat at the table, slides along the ground and stops 10 feet away. When everyone who was watching the argument turns to see who gave that hit, they see an angry Naruto with his fist extended. Laxus wipes his face, spits on the ground and stands up with rage on his face at his little cousin. "You dare to lay your hands on me, little cousin? Me, the strongest mage in the guild." He begins to spark with yellow lightning, however Naruto begins to spark with black lighting as he walks towards the older man. "Yes, Laxus, I dare. I dare to hit any man who calls my comrades weak. I dare to hit any man who talks shit about my father. I dare to shut your fucking mouth once and for all, cousin." The two lightning users' magical energy begins to swirl around the area, causing many to go to their knees. However, before they can make a move to fight, Minato appears, releasing his magical power and bringing them both to their own knees as he says, "Enough. I will not have you two brawling here like a couple of rabid dogs and undo all the work that we have already done to repair the guild. I'm disappointed in both of you. Laxus, you're older and should know better, and Naruto, you always reprimand the younger ones for losing their tempers." He lets go of his magical power and the two younger blondes stand back up, glaring at each other. Laxus scoffs and says, "Whatever, I'm taking another 3 S-class jobs, I won't be back for a while." He turns to walk off, but not before leaving a parting shot to Naruto. "I'll deal with you when I get back, God Slayer." Naruto clicks his tongue at this and answers, "Yeah, that's right. Run away with your tail between your legs like you always do, Laxus. Why don't you do everyone a favor and quit the guild and go join another?" With that, he turns around and heads back to what he was doing, as Laxus vanishes in a flash of lightning, leaving a frowning Minato to stand there with his head down and feeling major sadness. Later that day, while everyone is taking a break from working, Loke appears from the celestial spirit world and hands Lucy a bunch of tickets to the Akane resort that he had won a while back and kind of forgotten about. Lucy thanks him and offers a ticket to each member of her team, Gray, Urza, and Natsu, as well as an extra to Lisanna, but Urza says, "Why don't we let Oni-sama and Mira-chan have 2 of these tickets? They deserve to get away together." Hearing this, the blonde comes over and pats her on the shoulder. "It's alright, little sister, you guys take those tickets and have fun. Besides, after the S-class job I did for them, the owners of Akane Resort gave me a standing reservation anytime I want." Hearing this shocks the younger mages, but Mira comes over and slaps him upside the back of the head. "You've had standing reservations to Akane and never told me?" At the look in his fiancé's eyes, he flinches slightly and responds, "Yes. But only because we've always been busy with other things and it slipped my mind." She stares him down with her hands on her hips and says, "We are going to Akane Resort with them to enjoy some alone time on the beach. Understood?" Seeing the fire in her eyes, all he can do is nod and respond, "Yes, Mira-chan." At this, she smiles, kisses his cheek and goes off with Urza, Lucy, and Lisanna to go and buy new bathing suits. Minato and Makarov come up on either side of the youngest Drayar, both chuckling as the older blonde says, "You never stood a chance, son. See, this is why when you have something like standing reservations to Akane Resort, you either keep it to yourself until a really special time, or you tell your significant other immediately." Naruto nods at this as Makarov chimes in, "It's a mistake that we men have been making since the dawn of civilization, my boy." Naruto shakes his head as he looks at his father and grandfather. "You know that after we get back, Mira-chan will be telling Ka-san and Ba-chan about it and they'll be wanting to go to Akane Resort as well, right?" At this, the two men pale, as the God Slayer continues, "But hey, don't worry about the guild in your absences. I'll take good care of it and all the members." He walks off laughing, grabbing Gray and Natsu on the way to drag them off to go shopping for new swim trunks. None of them knowing that this leisurely visit to Akane Resort will change each of them for better or worse, especially Urza, and that the blonde God Slayer's wizard saint status would be revealed so soon. Minato and Makarov come up on either side of the youngest Drayar, both chuckling as the older blonde says, "You never stood a chance, son. See, this is why when you have something like standing reservations to Akane Resort, you either keep it to yourself until a really special time, or you tell your significant other immediately." Naruto nods at this as Makarov chimes in, "It's a mistake that we men have been making since the dawn of civilization, my boy." Naruto shakes his head as he looks at his father and grandfather. "You know that after we get back, Mira-chan will be telling Ka-san and Ba-chan about it and they'll be wanting to go to Akane Resort as well, right?" At this the two men pale, as the God Slayer continues, "But hey, don't worry about the guild in your absences. I'll take good care of it and all the members." He walks off laughing, grabbing Gray and Natsu on the way to drag them off to go shopping for new swim trunks. None of them knowing that this leisurely visit to Akane Resort will change each of them for better or worse, especially Urza, and that the blonde God Slayer's wizard saint status would be revealed so soon. Now next day Akane Resort coast of Fury 7 o'clock am. After taking the boys to get new swim trunks and paying for it out of his own pocket, things were pretty smooth sailing from there. When he returned home that night it was to find his lover, his sister, and Lucy all in his living room with multiple bags, at which point they forced him into his recliner and modeled swimsuits for him, Urza having an embarrassed blush on her face the whole time. When that was done and he'd given his opinions on which suit fit each young woman the best, they all thanked him in different ways. Urza gave him a sisterly hug, Lucy bowed her head in respect, while Mira made out with him long enough that the other two girls ended up showing themselves out. Needless to say there was more noises of passion for the neighbors to complain about that night. This morning they all met at the train station, and besides the issue of Urza bringing way too much luggage as usual, they boarded without any incident and got a private compartment. During the train ride Natsu as usual fell sick, but Lisana made him feel slightly better by allowing him to rest his head in her lap. However, Naruto couldn't help but take a pot shot at the pink-haired dragon slayer, citing that he'll never be able to beat the S-class mages of the guild if he gets weak from simple transportation. Now we find the group getting off the train at the Akane station, and as Naruto and Gray unload all their luggage the girls and Natsu all stare at the resort in awe. The blonde hearing their gasps and ahs turns and smirks. "Yeah, it's an impressive sight, isn't it? I admit the first time I saw it all I could do was whistle at how big it is." Mira comes over and wraps her arms around his left arm, pressing it into her cleavage, as Lucy turns and asks, "Why is it so large, Naruto-san?" The new wizard saint smiles at her, causing her to blush slightly, and responds, "It's as large as it is because it's more than just a hotel on the beach, it's also a casino, a fun park, and so much more. There's no end to the things you can find and do in Akane." Everyone gets excited at this, however in short order they pick up their bags and head inside to check in, Naruto and Mira getting the best suite in the hotel, as in the words of the manager, the hero of Akane and his lady love deserve only the best. The other rooms are divided up, Lisana and Natsu in one together, Urza and Lucy sharing the second, and Gray alone in the third room which the black-haired ice mage doesn't mind at all. Akane Resort Hotel Royal Suite. When the God Slayer and Takeover Mage step into their room, their first thought is wow. As the room they're in is huge, it takes up most of the top floor of the hotel, and has multiple rooms, including in-suite kitchen, 3 bedrooms including the master bedroom, a recreation room, and even has an office and meeting room. In short order Mira lets out a very girlish squeal and rushes towards the master bedroom, throwing the doors open and finding a super king-sized bed. She kicks off her heels and jumps onto the golden sheets, flopping onto her stomach and face, enjoying the softness of the bed. Naruto can only chuckle at his fiancée's reaction as he picks up both their bags and makes his way into the master bedroom at a more sedate pace, places them down near the walk-in closet, sits down on a chair and takes off his sandals, then walks over and lands down next to her on his back. Feeling his weight on the bed next to her, the white-haired woman lifts her head from the sheets and smiles at him before leaning over and kissing him tenderly, breaking away after only 10 seconds. Then she flips over onto her right side and lays her head on his chest. "This is a dream, Naru-kun. I never imagined that I'd be in the royal suite in the Akane Resort Hotel, on vacation with the man I love. You made this happen, you always spoil me, treat me like a queen, and I just want to thank you with all my heart for being the greatest fiancé in the world." The blonde smiles down at her and kisses the top of her head before giving his response, "There's no need to thank me, Mira-chan. As long as we live you'll never have to thank me for doing things for you, because I do them out of love. This vacation is long overdue and you deserve to have the very best, because you are the most wonderful woman in all of the world. Now what say we break this bed and then meet the others downstairs in couple of hours to go to the beach?" At this she smirks saucily, then climbs on top of him, straddling his waist, and proceeds to grab the hem of her shirt, pull it off and throw it to the floor, then leans down and kisses him again. Good thing the entire floor they're on is clear other than them, otherwise they'd be getting noise complaints from other guests. Akane Beach 10:01 Everyone met up a few minutes ago in front of the hotel and are now on the beach. Every member of the group is now wearing their new swimsuits. For the girls, Urza is wearing an all-black two-piece bikini, with the top just barely holding her large D-cup breasts, and the bottoms accentuating her plump rear. Lucy is wearing a white two-piece bikini which is slightly smaller than Urza's and has stars over the right breast and left hip, showing off her rather toned body for being a celestial mage. Lisanna is wearing a purple two-piece bikini which has some frills over the breasts and around the waist, and contains her high C cups nicely, while her older sister wears a red two-piece bikini with orange flower patterns all over it, as she poses sexily for Naruto. For the boys, Natsu range swimming trunks which go down to just below his knees, and has red flames around the bottom of the legs, while wearing his scarf around his waist like a sash, and not wearing a shirt. Gray is wearing a pair of ice blue swimming trunks which are the same length as Natsu's, and is white around the bottom of the legs, and as per usual he's shirtless. Naruto meanwhile is wearing red swimming trunks, however his have storms all over the front, and on his butt says sexy storm, while his shirtless form shows off his 8-pack abs, and his toned biceps. The group all set down towels to lay or sit on, and afterwards Natsu and Gray argue about who can swim out the farthest and fastest and head to the water. Naruto, who is sitting on the left side of Mira and applying lotion to her body, chuckles. Those two can't get along for more than a few minutes even on a vacation. Lisanna-chan, Urza Imoto, could you two go and keep an eye on the two dumb asses and make sure they don't destroy anything? At this Lisanna sighs. Yeah, I think I should go and try to keep Natsu-kun from getting too excited. Urza nods her head in agreement. I agree, I'll go and make sure that they don't do anything to bad Oni-san. Lucy, you come along too. The blonde girl who was just laying there on her back, getting some sun, sits up quickly. What? Why do I have to come along? The red-haired S-class wizard looks at her and answers, because you're a part of the team, plus you aren't afraid to knock either of them over the head when they're stupid, just like me. The blonde hangs her head at this and gets to her feet. Fine, let's go before they blow something up. With that, the three girls head down the beach where Natsu and Gray are now having a sand castle building competition. Naruto continues to rub lotion onto his love's backside, trailing his hands up and down her calves, down to her feet, making sure to get between the toes, causing her to giggle, then moving back up to her butt, causing her to let out a little moan. Then up and down her back, making her sigh as he works the kinks from their earlier activities out of her muscles, then to her shoulders. When he's done, he kisses her cheek. There you go, Mira-chan, all lotioned up in the back. Now flip over and I'll get the front. The white-haired beauty smirks as she turns on her side and gets up on her elbows, grabbing him and pulling him down, moving so that he is below her, and giving him a kiss. When she stops kissing him, he's laying there on his back. Actually, Naru-kun, I can handle my front myself, but since you were nice enough to do my back, the least I can do is to return the favor, so turn over and let's get started. The God Slayer can only smile good-naturedly and do as told, so he flips over onto his stomach and lays there as Mira gives him the same treatment he just gave her. After she finishes, the others come back, as Natsu asks, when we gonna eat? I'm starving. Naruto looks at him with a deadpan look on his face. Natsu, you're always hungry. You keep stuffing yourself like you do at the guild and you're going to become fat. Gray smirks at that and puts in his 2 cents worth. Never know, it might be a major improvement to his looks, a piggish body to go with his piggish face. That comment gets the Dragon Slayer angry enough to light his hands on fire. What was that, ice stripper? This causes Gray to cover his hands in cold. You heard me, fire pig. Just as they're about to fight, they both get hit over the head and their bodies go crashing into the sand, creating holes in the shapes of their bodies. Standing over the body-shaped holes is Naruto. How many times do I have to tell you two morons to get along? I swear to Ishval that if you two do anything to mess up this vacation, I'm going to put you both through my super special training program for a month. After he says this, the two come up out of their body holes, rubbing their heads and with looks of fear on their faces as they say in unison, "Aye, sir. We'll behave. Don't torture us." Mira, Urza, and Lisanna just laugh at this, while Lucy freaks out. They're acting like happy. Hey, what is the super special training program? At this, Urza stops laughing and looks at the blonde girl seriously. Oni-san's super special training program is akin to torture. He makes you do a ton of physical training, only you have heavy objects strapped to your body as you do them. Then when the physical training is done, he lets you rest for 5 minutes before making you work on your magic, and if you don't do it to his specifications, then he punishes you. At the end of saying that she shudders, thinking of some of the punishments she herself has had to endure. The blonde man turns to them with a smile. "Oh come now Imoto, don't scare the poor girl. My training program isn't that severe, and the punishment's not that bad." The redhead scoffs at this. "Not that bad? Your training regiment is harsher than Ka-san's and she makes you do everything while wearing gravity runes." Naruto shakes his head. "I don't make anyone wear gravity runes, just large boulders on their backs, or attached to their wrists and ankles." At this everyone's sweat drops and thinks, sadist. He just waves it off. "Besides, my foster father put me through way tougher training and look how strong I am today, both physically and magically." This causes everyone to think his foster father is a super sadist. Seeing their disbelieving looks, he coughs into his hand. "Well, enough of that. How about we play some volleyball?" Everyone quickly agrees to this, and they get a game going, with 2 teams of 3, with Urza, Lisana, and Lucy on one team, and Naruto, Natsu, and Gray on the other, while Mira referees. The game ends 2 hours later with the boys victorious, and so they all decide to head back inside to get cleaned up and have a late lunch, then spend some time in the casino. As they're walking back to the hotel, Naruto notices that Urza seems distracted and decides to find out why. He turns to Mira. "Mira-chan, you go on to the room ahead of me. I need to talk to my sister." The white-haired S-class mage looks over at her friend and notices the distracted look in her eyes and nods, as she kisses the blonde. "Okay. I'll get the shower ready and be waiting for you in the bathroom." He nods and she heads off while he walks over to the redhead. As she prepares to make her way to the elevators to go to her room, she feels someone place their hand on her shoulder and turns to see that it's her brother. As she goes to smile at him, she notices the concern in his eyes as he asks, "What's going on, Urza Imoto? What has you so distracted, as if you're not even here?" She shakes her head and smiles at him. "There's nothing wrong, Naruto Oni. I'm just thinking about how long it's been since I last took a vacation, that's all." However, the God Slayer isn't fooled one bit. "Don't lie to me, Urza. I know you too well to be fooled by that kind of excuse. I'm not Gray or Natsu. Now tell me what's wrong." The red-haired S-class mage sighs at this. "Fine. I'm remembering the last time I was in the area. The day that I was blasted from the Tower of Heaven by Jelal. The island the tower is located at is just a few miles off the coast from here, and I'm afraid that something is going to happen, and I'm going to find out that the tower wasn't destroyed, and someone or something is going to come and drag me back to that hell hole." As she speaks, she begins to shake, and eventually at the end she begins to cry. Naruto takes her into his arms and begins to run his hands through her hair. He tries to give his adopted sister as much comfort as he can as he speaks. "Don't you worry about a thing, little sister. I make you this promise right now. No matter what happens here in Akane, I will not allow you to go back to that place alone. Anyone who comes to try and take you will have to go through me, and I assure you that I will crush every person who even harms a hair on your head. If I should fail to keep you from going to the tower alone, then I'll head there myself and tear the abomination down with these 2 fists. I will never the way you did as a child again. That is my vow as your older brother." Urza sniffles a bit but looks up at him and gives him a beautiful smile as she wipes her eyes. "Thank you, Naru Oni. Look at me behaving like a little girl. I'm Urza Scarlet Drayar, S-class mage, Fairy Tales Titania. I'm stronger than this." Naruto smiles softly at her. "Remember the biggest tenet of fairy tales, sis. You do what I can't do, and I'll do what you can't do. Together we can accomplish anything. So with that in mind, I will always do what you can't and stand as the pillar of strength from which you can draw from." She nods and steps back from him. "Thanks again. Now I'm going to go and get cleaned up. You should too. You stink of sweat." He chuckles at this and nods his head, and they go their separate ways. Naruto heads to his room, and as soon as he enters he hears the shower going in the bathroom, telling him that Mira did exactly as she said she was going to do. So he proceeds to head that way, undressing on his way, first discarding his sandals, then his tank top, then his shorts. By the time he enters the bathroom, he's just as is his fiancée, as he steps into the shower with her, wraps her in his arms and proceeds to really steam things up. Casino. Several hours later, after their morning of fun in the sun, and eating lunch in their rooms, they all decided to hit the casino. The girls of course took this as an opportunity to get dolled up and suggested that the boys do the same. Forced Gray and Natsu to dress nice. Now the 3 of them are awaiting the girls down in the lobby of the hotel. Gray is dressed in a nice pair of black slacks, black dress shoes, and a long-sleeved red button-up shirt with a blue tie. Natsu is wearing a darker version of his usual outfit, the only difference is that the coat is buttoned shut. Naruto is wearing black dress pants and shoes just like Gray, however his shirt is black and his tie is red. And over his outfit is his Drayar fur-collared coat. Overall his current appearance makes him look like a mafia boss. Just then the elevator dings and the girls exit, and in word they're gorgeous. First is Urza, whose hair is tied up into a bun on top of her head, held in place by pins. She's dressed in a low-cut light purple dress with images of red roses all around it. That ties behind her neck and shows off the sides of her breasts. White gloves that go all the way up to her biceps, and black heels complete her look. Then there's Lucy, who is wearing beautiful dark purple colored dress with a matching collar tied around her neck, and a similar colored hair tie in the right side of her hair keeping up her usual side ponytail. There is also a slit in the dress running down her leg, allowing her to keep her keys attached to a gold ring around her right leg, completing the look as similar colored heels. After Lucy is Lisanna, who is dressed in a baby blue colored dress with frills around the bottom, with a plunging neckline to show off her cleavage. Finishing off her look are a pair of silver earrings in the shape of the fairy tale symbol along with a necklace with a dragon pendant and blue heels. Then there is Mira, the most beautiful one of them all in Naruto's opinion. Her hair is done up into a French braid down her back, with her usual front upwards ponytail. The white-haired woman is wearing a gorgeous black dress, which has a red lightning motif going up the sides of it, and shows off a generous amount of her cleavage. Around her neck is a heart-shaped locket which holds two pictures, one of herself and the other of her blonde lover. On her left ring finger is her engagement ring, and on her right wrist is a gold bracelet with the letters MS, LS, and ES, which are the initials for herself and her siblings, and completing her outfit are a pair of 2-inch black heels. As the four exit the elevator they strike poses to show off their outfits, as Mira asks, "So what you think, boys?" Although the only person whose opinion matters to her is her blonde god slayers. Naruto walks up to her and wraps an arm around her waist, pulling her to him and kisses her shortly, then he gives his opinion, "You look absolutely gorgeous, Mira-chan. I love that dress especially." Then he turns to his sister, "You look beautiful, Imoto." The redhead smiles brightly at her brother's compliment, as he turns to his fellow blonde. "Lucy, you are a vision of lovely innocence." The blonde celestial mage blushes cutely at his words but gives him a small, quiet thanks. Then he turns to Lisanna, "You look amazing as well, Lisanna-chan." As the younger white-haired girl smiles kindly at him and walks over to her boyfriend. After some grumbling from Gray and Natsu, the group finally heads into the casino, at which point they go their separate ways to do some gambling. Naruto and Mira head to the craps tables, Urza and Lucy head to the roulette table, Natsu and Lisanna head to a large claw game, and Gray heads to a blackjack table. As the night rolls on, everyone but Natsu and Lisanna move around. After winning 1,000,000 jewels at the craps table, Naruto and Mira move to the roulette tables. Urza and Lucy, after winning and losing a couple thousand jewels respectively, move on to a blackjack table. Gray, after breaking even, decided to head over to the bar, and once he sits down he's approached by a familiar blue-haired former Phantom Lord Waterwoman, who is wearing a blue dress and a huge golden fairy tale necklace and minus her fur hat. She sits next to him and begins to flirt with him, which completely goes over the idiot's head. However, their good time is about to come to a crashing halt. Naruto and Mira are having fun cleaning up at the roulette table, having won another 2,000,000 jewels. However, suddenly the blonde's magical senses go off big time and he tenses up. Seeing her fiancé go from smiling and having fun to looking serious and being tense worries Mira, who asks, "What's wrong, Naru-kun?" The wizard saint looks down at her and replies, "I sense 4 magical signatures with intent to harm. Cash us out while I go and check on the others." She nods at this, knowing his senses are never wrong, as he turns and walks off onto the casino floor to look for their comrades. Meanwhile, all of the members of Team Natsu are just finding out what Naruto already knows. Natsu is attacked by a man made of blocks and talks like a gangster from a bad movie. He appears to be dressed in a blue suit, with a white undershirt and red tie. He has white scarf around his neck, on his head is a fedora, and on his block-like face is stubble, and he's wearing sunglasses. The gangster wannabe attacks Natsu by turning his arm into a gun-like weapon and fires a beam of magical energy at the fire dragon slayer, taking him out. Gray and Juvia, who are sitting at the bar, are suddenly enshrouded in darkness, and the Ice Mage's senses screams at him as a large man appears behind them. He grabs Juvia and dodges the first strike, which destroys Tabar, and when he looks at their attacker he sees just how large he is. The man in question is very large, about 7 feet tall with a huge muscular torso, arms and hands which all seem even larger compared to his thin legs. His left eye is covered in a simple, dark eye patch, held up by an extremely slim rope, with a thin scar emerging from under it and going down diagonally on his cheek. His massive jaw is obscured by an armored metal plate, bearing lines of studs on its upper edges and 2 side protrusions jutting upwards, plus a set of teeth like ornaments, overall resembling a skeletal jaw. The top of his head is covered in a light cloth wrapped around it, tied on the back, where a pair of long wrappings are left hanging over his neck, with another one hanging on the right of his face, such that the headgear bears a great resemblance to a turban. His outfit is odd as most of his muscular upper body is left exposed, being only covered by a large, light cloth passing over his left shoulder and going down below his waist, where it is tied by a light sash, plus a single, dark sleeve on the left arm, bearing 2 light stripes vet, from the shoulder to the cuff. The cloth crossing his chest diagonally has its edges adorned by a series of dark pyramids, and bears in its middle several dark, larger motifs, highly reminiscent of double-edged axes. He also wears a pair of extremely loose dark pants, almost reaching down to his ankles, which make his thin legs look larger, and a simple pair of light, ankle boots. Gray looks up at the man and prepares to attack, however the man holds up his hand. "Wait, I wish not to fight. My initial strike was only to get your attention. My name is Simon Mikazuchi, and we have something in common. We both wish to protect Urza Scarlet." This gets both of the other mages' attention as the 3 begin to talk instead of fight. Meanwhile Urza and Lucy are having to deal with the last 2 members of this 4-person team. Lucy happens to be all tied up by a rubbery rope which gets tighter the more she struggles, as well as restricting her magic, and was created by a woman with brow hair which is done up on top to look like cat ears. She also has cat-like eyes, and 2 red triangles on each cheek to represent whiskers. She is wearing a pink dress with frills on the bottom, over that is a yellow jacket with black lines, and around her neck is a purple collar with a bell. This young woman's name is Miliana. Urza is frozen in shock by her and another, a young man with a brown skin tone, spiky blonde hair, with green eyes. He has a small tattoo on his chin of a serpent. He wears the outfit of a blackjack dealer, black dress slacks, a white button-up shirt, with a black vest on over it. The young man's name is Sho, and he and Miliana are old friends of the redheads from her years in the Tower of Heaven. Sho has magic. He's managed to trap many of the patrons of the casino into playing cards. The blonde-haired teen looks at the redhead and speaks. "It's time to return, Urza, nay. Time to return to the tower and fulfill your promise to us." The redhead is still in shock that her old friends can use magic. "Sho, Miliana, I thought you'd died. How are you here? How do you have magic? This doesn't make any sense." Just then Wally and Simon appear, further shocking her, as they explain that Jelal found magic in them and helped them to learn to use it, and now he wants her back. As Sho moves to place her into one of his cards so they can leave, suddenly they're all brought to their knees by a massive magical energy. When they look to the source they find Naruto, who is walking towards them slowly with a look of anger upon his face. "You thought you could waltz in here and just take my Imoto and not encounter any kind of opposition? You thought you could play on her fears and her feelings of regret for leaving you all behind and manipulate her to return to the hellhole that has haunted her for years?" As he says this last question, his magical power increases and explodes out of him, cracking the floor beneath him. He brings up his hand, wind swirling around it, and motions towards Lucy. As soon as he does, the rope around her is slashed into hundreds of little pieces, freeing the girl. He turns back to the 4 enemy mages. "You thought wrong. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to return to the Tower of Heaven empty-handed, but with a message for your master. Tell Jelal that Naruto Uzumaki Dreyar is coming for him. Tell your master that I'm going to kick his ass and tear down his tower of suffering and lies." As he says this, black lightning is sparking around his body. Urza places her hand on his arm, which causes him to rein in his magic and look at her confused as she looks sadly at him. "It's okay, Naruto Oni. I'll go with them. It's time to end this 8-year nightmare once and for all." The blonde looks at her in anger, and shakes his head as he responds. "I can't allow that. Remember, I know you better than anyone, little sister. I know that you hope to end things on your own without involving your fairy tale comrades. But you forget that fairy tale is family and we face all problems together. If you want to go to the tower, then we'll go together. You, me, Mira-chan, Natsu, Gray, Lisanna, and Lucy. The red-haired S-class mage stares into his eyes for a few moments, however their moment is broken by the area becoming dark and hands reaching out to grab her. Simon's attempt to abduct Urza is stopped by a fist to the face that sends him back next to his fellow tower mages. Naruto glares straight at the entire group, but especially the large man, and they can tell that even through the darkness he can see them. The blonde growls at them, "Leave. Now. I'm in a merciful mood right now, but it won't stay that way for long. Tell Jelal that he'll be seeing Urza soon, and she won't be coming alone." The large man stands back to his feet and nods his head, "Very well. We shall see just how strong the bond between Fairy Tail really is. Come Wally, Sho, Miliana." With that the darkness enshrouds the four and they vanish from sight. A moment later the light returns to the room, and Mira walks up with Gray, Juvia, Lisanna, and Natsu. Urza turns to her older brother with a slight glare. "Why did you do that? Why didn't you just let me go with them? The tower and Jelal are my problems to deal with. You had no right to make a decision for the entire group like that." The God Slayer walks up alongside her, facing the other way from her. "I told you earlier, didn't I? I will not allow you to return to that place alone. I will do everything in my power to protect you and to destroy the nightmare that has plagued you for 8 years. You don't have to do things on your own, you have support. I promised you that I would tear down that tower with my bare hands, and that's what I intend to do. Because I wouldn't be a very good big brother if I didn't take care of my little sister's bad dreams, now would I?" Her eyes widen at this, however she quickly begins to tear up as turns around and hugs him from behind, crying into his coat. Seeing the strong Urza cry like a little girl hits Lucy, Natsu, Lisanna, and Gray hard as they all look up to her like an older sister, and Lucy sees her as a role model on how to be a strong female mage. Juvia is confused, and Mira just smiles gently as she walks over to her fiancé and best friend and touches the redhead's shoulder gently to gain her attention. "Naru-kun is right, Urza-chan. You don't have to go it alone. Every one of us are here and ready to fight alongside you to end your pain once and for all. Let us help you. Let us put an end to the specter of Jelal and the tower." The redhead looks to her best friend and releases her brother to hug the white-haired woman instead and smiles. "All right, Mira-chan, I'll accept your help." Then she looks at all the others. "I'll also accept your help as well, if you'll give it." In response, Natsu covers his fist in flames and punches his other hand. "I'm all fired up. I gotta pay that block guy back." Lucy smiles lightly and nods her head. "Even though I'm not much use in a fight past my spirits, I'm up for a little adventure." Gray, who is now shirtless, runs his hand through his hair. "Well, since Naruto Aniki is leading us, I'm ready for anything." Then Urza turns towards Juvia. "Juvia-san, this has nothing to do with you, so you're free to do as you please." The blue-haired woman shakes her head and responds, "Juvia will help as well." Juvia must stay by the side of Gray-sama as his destined woman. Most of them look at her weirdly at this, but Naruto just chuckles, and begins to walk away. "All right then, let's move out everyone. Our next stop is to get a boat and then we're heading straight for the Tower of Heaven." As he walks he's covered in white light, and when it disappears his outfit has changed to his usual attire. However, his furred coat is now white and has the symbol for the wizard saints on the back. Seeing the symbol of the 10 most powerful wizards in all of Fury emblazoned upon the God Slayer's back shocks Natsu, Lucy, Gray, Lisanna, and Juvia. However, Mira and Urza smile and know that him doing this means he's going to the tower not just as a S-class Magas, a member of the 10 wizard saints, meaning he's going to go all out. The group proceeds to follow him. Gray now has his shirt back on. Urza re-quips to her usual armor, while Mira re-quips to her usual day dress. Natsu has his coat opened up again, while Juvia, Lucy, and Lisanna are still in their dresses. Akane dock. After arriving at the docks, the blonde God Slayer quickly manages to procure a boat for all of them. He pays a fisherman for the use of his ship, which the man is happy to provide to the hero of Akane and his party, and the wizard saint begins to bark out orders to Natsu, Gray, Juvia, and Lucy to get the sails unfurled and the anchor up and get underway. As they sail, the blonde is standing at the bow of the ship looking forward, his eyes shining with barely contained rage at the audacity of Jelal Fernandez, sending people that he knows mean the world to Urza to invoke feelings of regret and guilt in her and force her to come back to the tower for some inane scheme of his. However, as he thinks these things, he realizes that he should let his father know what's going on so that his going all out doesn't get him hauled in by the Magic Council. So he takes out his communications lacrima and channels his magical energy into it, establishing the connection. A moment later, his mother's smiling face appears on the crystal. "Hey Sochi, how's the vacation going? You and Mira-chan making me grand babies yet?" Naruto groans at this. "No Ka-chan, we haven't started making babies yet and won't until after we're married. As for the vacation, it was going well until shit went down. I need to talk to Toussaint about it, so can you get him for me?" The redhead pouts at his first sentence and then gets worried at the second, but nods her head as he watches her disappear from the screen. A few moments later, both his father and grandfather appear as both give him serious looks. The elder blonde speaks in his master voice and asks, "What's up, Naruto? Why are you wearing your wizard saint coat?" The younger blonde scowls as he begins to explain the situation, from the confrontations in the casino, to their current course for the Tower of Heaven. As he speaks, he can see on his end both his elders beginning to exude their magical powers as rage mars their faces. When he finishes, Minato replies, "I see. You have my permission to annihilate the bastard in that tower. I'll let the council know what's going on so that you don't get in trouble for using all your strength." The God Slayer nods in thanks to him. However, his father's next words light a bigger fire in him and Naruto. "Keep Urza from suffering any more emotional and mental pain. Protect your sister with all you have, son. We're counting on you." He smirks at this and responds back, "No problem, Toussaint. After I'm through with that bastard, his name will be nothing more than a distant memory to Imoto. As for the tower, the island it's on won't even exist once I've finished demolishing it." The fourth master of Fairy Tail smiles slightly at this, as does the former third master, and the connection is cut off. The blonde places the lacrima back in his coat and goes back to standing at the bow of the ship with his arms crossed in front of his chest. If anyone was looking at him right now, they'd say he bears a striking resemblance to his cousin Laxus, which he would instantly deny. As they travel, eventually the tower comes into view, towering into the sky, looking like a twisted hodgepodge of different metals, with sporadically jutting sides. It appears to be very chaotic and asymmetrical. Naruto can feel the evil energy coming from it even from this distance and knows that there's something more to it than can be seen. As they get closer, everyone prepares for the fight ahead of them. However, Naruto looks to his fellow blonde mage and calls out to her, "Lucy. Come here, please." The younger blonde comes over to him with a look of confusion on her face and asks, "What can I do for you, Naruto-san?" He looks at her with a serious look which kind of scares her, as he's usually smiling, and he responds, "I've noticed over the last few months that you rely too heavily on your spirits and don't know any other magic. In Fairy Tail that can be dangerous, and make you a burden to your comrades, since you'll always need saving once your spirits are gone." She looks down in sadness at his words, hurt that her fellow blonde mage finds her useless, as tears start to prick at the corner of her eyes. However, she's surprised when she feels his finger under chin and him lift her head up to look right at him, and he continues, "However, there are ways for you to fix this. The best way is to learn one or two other magics to supplement your celestial spirit magic. When this is all over and we go back to the guild, I'll help you to find another magic for you to use so that you don't have to fear being weaker than everyone else and increase your confidence as a mage." She sees the sincerity in his eyes and wipes away her tears as she gives him a beaming smile. "Thank you, Naruto-san." The God Slayer shakes his head at her and lightly bonks her on top of hers as he reprimands her slightly. "Stop with the san crap. Fairy Tail is a family, and you're part of that family, so do like everyone else and call me Naruto ni, or Naruto Aniki, okay?" She rubs her head in mock hurt but perks up even more and smiles even more brightly at him and responds, "Yes, Naruto ni." He nods at that with his own smile and sends her back on her way to prepare to make land at the island. As everyone goes about their preparations, Naruto can only look up near the top of the tower with a sneer on his handsome face as he thinks to himself, "I'm coming for you, Fernandez. Sit up there in your shitty tower and enjoy your time as a king, because by tomorrow you'll be nothing more than a bloody smear at the end of my fist. I'm going to show you what happens when you screw around with the lives of the people I care about, and you will find out firsthand the power of a raging storm." The end.